Those are the little yellow potatoes. The broadcast is live, and we're talking potatoes.
That's right. No comics here today. Well, maybe later.
Because mashed potatoes is like the one thing all American children will eat too. It's like all fussy eating children will eat mashed potatoes. But I'd like to point out that there's a huge difference between mashed potatoes you make out of actual potatoes and those potato flakes box potatoes that a lot of people eat and make. Oh, no thank you on those.
That is true.
Though they're better, I'm told they're better than they once were. I don't need potato flakes.
I don't need potato flakes when I can just make mashed. I mean, it's so easy to make mashed potatoes.
Yeah, boiled potatoes, but I guess, boiling a box of dehydrated potatoes is even easier.
But they don't have any skins. You got to keep the skins on them to put a little flavor in there.
Yeah, we do that with boiled potatoes. We eat boiled potatoes with the skin on.
Right.
Yeah. Especially with fish.
Potato flakes, no skins.
Yeah, I don't usually make skin on mashed potatoes. I mean, not that I dislike them, but I prefer the texture of. And I also don't make whipped potatoes. That's a whole different thing when you use a beater on them.
Oh, I see. I do that.
See, to me, that those are whipped potatoes. That's a completely different texture than a mashed potato.
But it comes out kind of the same.
No. Whipped potatoes are usually much smoother.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
there
that's
are
what I
no
don't want.
lumps in whipped potatoes.
Right. Lumps should be in mashed potatoes. That's how you know they're mashed potatoes.
Right, but if you don't whip them that long, you get lumps in it.
I just never.
All I'm saying is, if you tried the mashed potatoes that I make, I don't think that you would dislike them.
I don't dislike whipped potatoes. I just don't like them as much as mashed potatoes because I like the texture better.
Have we seriously talked about this for like 10 minutes?
No, only 3 minutes at best.
Oh, okay.
Well, no one's arrived yet, so
subject to talking about potatoes, but
we've got 5 people watching as of this moment, but no one's commented. So
everyone is wondering what's this about potatoes.
Yeah, everybody's like, the comic book come out about potatoes.
We're picking up where Paolo and Scott left off last night, talking about potatoes.
Yeah, one of the things we said: why are there so few comics about food? Although in manga there are a lot of comics about food.
Yeah, I'm told there's a genre about cooking and food in Japanese comics, but I don't actually know since I haven't read them. And there was that one from Dark Horse I saw you guys. I forget which chef did it last year about cooking, or maybe 3-4 years ago now. Was it that chef who died?
Oh, Anthony.
Yeah.
Was it him who did it?
Yeah, he did. It was called Get Jiro.
Okay.
Do you know there are whole crochet books out about how to crochet like little itty bitty food sculptures, like little itty bitty slices of cake and itty bitty cupcakes? No, I have never done that myself. I might. The closest thing I would come is crocheting a Cthulhu. Like that's the Cthulhu pattern for crochet, but that's like, what do you do? What do you do with a crocheted cupcake?
You have it look cute as a knickknack. Comic Crack is here, and King Spoit 1 is in the house. I've been enjoying seeing a bunch of King Spoit's paintings on Facebook that he posts in his comic pages. He's working on a G.G. Allen comic.
Oh, dear God.
Yes, oh, dear God.
You're going to run out of brown paint and red.
So I read a lot of comics this week. It was amazing how many comics I read this week. Some of them read really fast too, and like
even though you had to wait an extra day.
I've been watching Jupiter's Legacy. He's halfway done. G.G. Allen comic. I've been watching the Jupiter Legacy TV show, which is nowhere near as exciting as the Jupiter's Legacy comic book. So I pulled out the Jupiter's Legacy comic book to read, which is by Frank Quitely and Mark Miller. I didn't get any of the offshoots of it, like Jupiter's Circle or Jupiter's This. I just bought, and it's only 2 5-issue series, so it's 10 issues, and it probably took me about an hour to reread those 10 issues. I mean, they go by fast because the comic book is all about like superhero excitement. And the TV show is all this long, drawn-out character stuff. The TV show got canceled even. Oh, they're not doing the second season. They finally in episode 6 of the TV show, they reached page 6 of the first issue of the comic. That's how different they are. Michael is writing it. I'm doing the art and editing. G.G. Allen coloring book. Wow. Use up all your brown crayons.
And red.
But like, have you got Jupiter's Legacy? It's just such a fun superhero comic book. And I always say Mark Miller is the master of the expected. And that's what you get with Jupiter's Legacy. You get, the story is, having dinner late, no mashed potatoes. Jackie O is here too. But like Jupiter's Legacy is the story of these, these superheroes. They've been around for like 40 years or something. 2 brothers are the main guys. And the one brother decides they should be more active in running the world. And the other brother's like, no, we lead by example. We take care of supervillains. We don't run the government. And then there's their sons and daughters and all the second generation of superheroes who really aren't into superheroing. They're just, and the other lead character is so there's 2 brothers. There's the hero and there's the guy who wants the practical guy. And the hero has a son and a daughter, and they're both kind of screw-ups. The daughter is a real screw-up. She's this model superhero, and like fashion model superhero, and she really doesn't want to be a superhero. She does drugs and drinks too much.
It's rough being a model and a superhero. I mean,
it is. Can't live up to her father's legacy, but to spoil the story a little bit, because this is where the story really starts, is when the practical brother who wants to take over the government arranges to have the superhero brother killed. So he and a bunch of the other heroes kill the superhero, the Superman type guy, so that they can more directly take over the government. Meanwhile, if you're not on board with it, the hero's son is on board with his uncle. The daughter, who's the screw up, isn't on board with the uncle, and she just found out she's pregnant too. So her and her baby daddy run away and hide. So then, the uncle and the nephew basically take over the world, or they take over the U.S. kind of. They just start running the government. They don't really take over by force. They take over by, we should do this, we should do that, we should do this, but of course there's force behind it because they're superheroes. It's kind of like, well, how can the regular people running the government say no? So then it cuts to 10 years later, when the little kid, the grandson now of the Superman guy, they're all in hiding because any superheroes who pop up get put into prison. Superheroes, supervillains, it doesn't matter. They get put into prison. What was that?
How do they catch them?
Oh, they've got all the superhero. They've got a guy who used to be a villain who's really good at catching them.
Gotcha. I was just wondering if they're superheroes. Yeah.
Actually, now that I think of it, he reminds me of, remember Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You remember the kid catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Oh my God, totally, yeah.
That's who the guy reminds me of, the kid catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He dresses it all in black. He may even have a mustache he twirls. I don't remember. But anyway, they keep track of what there's 35 known superheroes or villains who they haven't found yet. Meanwhile, the grandson of the Superman guy is this really, he really wants to be a superhero because he's heard stories of his father. So of course, the rest of the story, after you get the beat down, you get, in a Mark Millar story, you get the recovery and the comeback. And that's exactly what you get in Jupiter's Legacy. It's like, I always say Mark Millar is the master of the expected. You see the good guys beat down, you expect them to come back, and they eventually come back. Meanwhile, on the TV show, none of that has happened.
Oh, that's
six episodes in, and we still haven't got the betrayal from there's just none of that has happened. We've gotten all the characters, so it's like there's been no excitement of it. Hello there, sleepy reader. So it's like really weird how slow the TV show is and just how fast the comic is. So like 10 issues, I just reread in under an hour. That's fast. Because most of it, and he also sets things up. It's like sometimes, like Mark Millar, you can see he telegraphs his moves sometimes. Like I think it was the beginning of volume. It's really all one big story. Yeah, Jupiter's Legacy was canceled. The show is already canceled, but read the comic. The comic is a lot more fun than the show. Not that the show is terrible. The show's okay. But it's this slow character study of superheroes. Well, meanwhile, the comic was this fast-paced superhero story. And like he's got this, like in the beginning of the second arc, there's this giant woman. I forget her name. She grows like the 80-foot tall woman she grows to. The catcher catches her. Then later on you see her like in the prison. And I was like, you just know they have her there just to step on. So I'm like, eventually she's going to squash the people who are holding her prison. You just know it. And sure enough, a few issues later, she gets to squash someone. I'm like, they have he's got a giant character in here just to squash someone. Yeah, I have no idea if he was involved, but like the show is just a character study, and the comics weren't. They just were not.
That's disappointing since the show had. I mean, if it's a show, it has so much more space to fit more. So, like, it didn't have to move slowly. If the comics moved that quickly, like they could have just put more stuff in.
Yeah, I think they had one real. They had a big battle. They had a big battle in like the first or second episode that was good. Other than that, there wasn't too much going on. But like it's not terrible. I'm going to finish it. I think there's like 2. I'm on episode 6 out of 8. I think I'll finish watching the other 2 eventually. I'm not much of a binge, but like it made me go and pull down the comics.
Yep. But the show you're watching, old man style.
Yeah, I am not a binge watcher. Not at all.
I don't think I would if I wasn't doing something in the background. Like if I wasn't always doing something, like painting something, and then I just let something run because it's.
Well, that's not really watching though.
Yeah. True.
Jared's internet died.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I got kicked out.
You get kicked out of your own show?
Yeah, that happens on occasion. It's happened on a couple of shows. Usually I get kicked out twice, so who knows?
Gotcha. Yeah. You came back too fast for us to get the nude photos.
Star Wars better than a 3-act movie. I don't even know. Netflix canceled me. I was talking to, but he just binge watched Sweet Tooth. Yeah, I have like zero interest in Sweet Tooth. That
Jeff Lemire.
I heard about that. What is that about?
Based on a Jeff Lemire comic.
Yeah.
I
just saw a preview, but I didn't watch it closely enough.
Yeah, I don't know. The only Jeff Lemire comic I read was Royal City.
Okay.
Is that it? Royal City? Yeah, Royal City. And that was just okay.
Yeah. I have Trillium.
Yeah, how was that?
Okay, not bad. Not the best thing I've read. That's the thing about Jeff Lemire. There's nothing that Jeff Lemire's ever done that's really wow.
Yeah.
But you always want to try something else.
What is Sweet Tooth about?
I don't know. Some kid who's a half deer in the future.
Right. Yeah, it looks like a post-apocalyptic thing with a kid that has antlers or something.
Yeah, who they're mean to. Royal City, I actually won in a YouTube contest. I forget whose contest it was. I can't remember. Mercimac, something like that. Who I think he was stopping reading comics and moving over to like sports cards or something. And then he I think stopped making YouTube videos. But before he did that, he had a contest, and which I won, and so he sent me the Royal City comics, which I eventually read I think about 10 or 12 issues. Hunting the hybrids to cure the global plague. Oh, that's what it's on. I got to start watching MODOK on Hulu. Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Oh, yeah, Patton Oswalt is...
Patton Oswalt's fun, but...
I love him.
But like, one of the problems I have, if I remember correctly, it didn't even stick with me a whole lot, Royal City. It was one of those books, it started out one way, and you could tell in the middle he lost the thread of it. And then it ended another, because it started out as like this guy, I think he was maybe even been a writer, moving back to his old hometown, Royal City, and then which had some deep dark secret in Royal City, and it's like people hardly ever left there, So he was coming back, and he was dealing with being back in his hometown. He was dealing with people who used to be his friends, but he hadn't really talked to since he was one of the only ones who left there. But then like halfway through, the deep dark secret just got ignored. We never found out what it was. And it just turned into more of a slice of life thing, which was okay, but was in no way great. I did not like the one MODOK episode I watched. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see, but yeah, but that's the only Jeff Lemire thing I've read.
Yeah, I got much further in Monsters. I think I've got about 70 pages maybe to go, and just keeps getting better. I mean, God, how tragic! It's like most of the way through the flashbacks.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's flipping brutal, but good, very well.
Yeah, it's really well done, but tough. I mean, there's that poor kid,
right? And his poor mom too. I mean, she didn't have a party either.
Yeah.
It's,
that just reminded me, I read some of Lemire's Black Hammer. I wasn't fond of it only because I'm tired, not because it was bad. I'm tired of stories where everybody's a thinly veiled version of some famous character. Because it was his own superhero universe, but this guy was a thinly veiled Batman. This guy was a thinly veiled Superman. This guy was a thinly veiled, I don't know, Doctor Strange. Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I just was tired of that kind of storytelling. I don't even think it's ended. It's had endless spin-offs. And they were all trapped. And another thing about it, it was one of those, what I refer to as lost plots, where the plot of the book is what's happening what is happening in this story. That's the plot of the book. Because there were all these superheroes trapped in this sort of mundane world that they couldn't get out of. And they were trapped because of some big incident that they didn't really know what it was. So it was like the whole thing was they were wondering why they were trapped there too. The main series of Black Hammer. And I just knew the reason they were trapped there would not be the least bit interesting.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it makes me wonder if it's like with the Lost writers, if they came up with the premise before they came up with the full story arc. So
that happens so often.
Unexpectedly successful, and then they're like, oh shit, we don't know how to end this.
Lost was like that.
I know.
They don't have any master plan for Lost.
Nope. They were just like, what do we do with them now? They had no friggin' idea how to end it, and they lost me after like, I don't know, I'm going to say an episode or two into the second season. I was like, all right, they're just going to.
Especially since Bunch is friendly with one of the head writers there and was like, we told him, we don't have a plan. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, so
that's how TV works. There's rarely a master plan. Even there was someone we used to work with at Marvel, Thomas Velasquez, used to work with us in the bullpen, who actually got so disillusioned and stopped reading comics, at least for a while, when he first started working at Marvel and found out there was no master plan. That the writers didn't have a master plan for what was going on.
Right.
They were all writing this stuff month to month. He was just like, oh.
I didn't know that when he first started there, he just stopped.
Oh, yeah. He actually told me that. Yeah.
Reading the comics, I never thought that there would be a master plan. I was actually surprised when they did that 70th anniversary special magazine, and they interviewed most of the former editors-in-chief. And Tom DeFalco said, well, now I finally could plan things years in advance. Really? Why would you want to do that?
Well, I think there was occasionally a little bit of planning things years in advance, but no real master plan.
Sure. Yeah, imagine it was like, okay, let's try to do something with this brand so that we can build up to have this amount of sales. Yeah,
and like the clone story, they were originally supposed to be let's do a clone story, the Spider clone story. Someone came up with an idea. It was supposed to last a few months, and the other guy was supposed to take over the Spider-Man book. That was their master plan for getting Spider-Man a single again. But then other things happened, and they had to stretch out the story for a year. And, that was the worst master plan. I mean, sometimes master plans get superseded by other master plans. Lemire's Roughneck was great. Yeah, I wanted to read that one. I've heard that one was good. That's a graphic novel one.
I wonder if it's just like a writer's thing nowadays, because I see that too in children's and young adults publications, where like all the time I'll get a book and it says, okay, we've completely rewritten the last chapter. So, and it's because they've thought up the idea for a sequel, and they have to completely rewrite the last chapter or two of a book so that they can set it up so they don't like close out certain storylines for the sequel. And I'm like, can you just do me a favor and write the book before it gets to my desk? And I have to fiddle with it. Like, just write the book. Have a master plan.
For a while, they called people like Bendis Marvel's architects. And they also used to and still do have like writers' retreats. Where all the writers and editors get together for a weekend to talk about what's going to happen in all the books. But as soon as they're out of the retreat,
no drink is involved there whatsoever. Yeah, absolutely no alcohol.
No alcohol, no drinking going on.
No.
But as soon as the retreat is over, everybody's free to do what they want.
I think it was a good idea at the time that when they wanted to do events to get all the people involved. That way, everybody would get to contribute, and you wouldn't have writers complaining like Peter David did in X Factor. Oh, they're interrupting my storyline for another summer crossover. That's okay. Yeah. But the notion that you need to have, okay, let's all go to this fancy hotel for a 3-day weekend and drink lots of booze and get foot massages.
You don't knock foot massages. Those are,
and like I said, there's always a certain amount, if not all, writers who subvert the master plan. That's just the nature of writers. Mm-hmm. You give them a master plan, they want to subvert it. It's the artists too, but Unless the writers are usually in charge of the plot. That's why I say reboots never hold, because immediately writers want to subvert the reboot.
Yeah, I was reading some of the 70s Doctor Strange the other day, and Steve Englehart was writing it, and then he quit Marvel. And then Marv Wolfman takes over Doctor Strange. It took him one issue to do a 180 on something that Steve Englehart was writing.
Yeah. That's right. When I was a kid growing up in the 70s, especially 70s Marvel, made me suss out that there's no, like reading Omega the Unknown was one of my favorite books as a kid. And I got like, I don't think I ever bought it off the stands. I got all 10 or 12 issues at like one time off of somebody in the neighborhood. And that book changed directions probably 3 times in its 12 issues. And I could suss that out when I was a kid. And it fascinated me. It was like, I was like, well, they've already abandoned their plan. And I could see as like a 10 or 12-year-old that they abandoned their plan and are coming up with a new one on the fly. So I knew pretty young that there was no master plan at these big places.
Right. In the 70s, we knew there was no master plan because they said so in interviews. Especially when Jim Shooter came in and said, "Man, they were like playing Tarzan across the halls." Nobody cared about writing and editing.
Yeah. So let me show you some of the books I got this week. The first one on my pull list, Nocterra. Let me show Is it Scott Snyder and Tony Daniels? This is with some great boob armor there. Fun stuff so far. I'd give this book a solid B. I've been enjoying it, but it's not an A. Post-apocalyptic book. All the sunlight in the world is gone. It's still there, I guess, making everything grow, and everything that's in the dark too long turns into this mutated monster. So it's, there's some survival of these people. So it's, how they survive, and this one woman who's a trucker moving things from place to place, and the light is the only thing that keeps away being turned into a monster. And as soon as your like eyes go, being stabbed in the boobs is a big problem. I feel like Jared's writer need to subvert theory. Yeah, it is. I've seen it too many times that they really need to subvert stuff. They can't help it.
Deep down, every writer thinks, I am a genius and everyone else is a talentless hack.
Yeah. Especially when you're taking orders from the people who aren't writing anything, from editors or marketing people. You don't want to take orders from marketing people on how to be creative. That's just like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that, and it's not all writers, but a certain percentage, and I think all writers have a certain percentage of wanting to subvert, and a certain percentage of all writers have to subvert. They just have to. I've just noticed that they can't help themselves. But yet, Nocterra has been decent. I'm glad I put it on my pull list. Hasn't blown me away, but I've been enjoying it. And you need comics like that on your pull list, because otherwise the pull list is going to be too thin. And an A-level comic is, of course, any Terry Moore comic.
And what's that one about?
This one is this little girl. This is a character who he's been working with before. She's from Rachel Rising. She looks like she's a 12-year-old girl, but she's actually this like thousands-of-year-old demon.
Ooh, the art is beautiful.
The art is beautiful. He's a terrific. Matter of fact, on the back is Terry Moore's How to Draw Expanded Edition. These are his Strangers in Paradise characters.
No wonder.
And the plot in this is she's been it's called the Terryverse now. He used to do Strangers in Paradise exclusively. But then I don't know, for the past 10 or 15 years he's been doing other books. He did Echo. He did Echo. Oh, wow. She's all of a sudden I can't remember. Rachel Rising. He did, what was the one with the mechanic girl and the gorilla? He did one called, and then he did one kind of uniting them all and called 5 Years. So now it's called the Terryverse. We read all of Strangers in Paradise this week. Wow, it really is good. I want to sit down and read it all because I read it over time. I've never read it all at once, but I'm going to read it all at once one of these days, probably soon. But like I said, she showed up. Rachel Rising was a horror book. And she was one of the horror characters, but then she's been in other stories since then, too. Like I said, she looks like a 10 or 12-year-old. I forget how old she's supposed to be, 10 or 11. But she's not. She's a demon but she's one of the protagonists. And in this one, and I think she used to be an actual little girl. Because in this one, she meets up with one of her childhood friends who's a grown woman now. Grown woman, married, but this woman was married to a guy who had a proclivity for 16-year-old girls.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, he runs into this woman who's a sociopath.
As one does.
Who is hunting pedophiles, who's hunting guys who have a proclivity for 16-year-old girls. And what she does is she dresses herself up like a 16-year-old girl, gets them to make passes at her, then kills them, but also then goes back and kills their wives, too, if they have one, because they knew. The wife she killed was the childhood friend of this demon girl. So now the demon girl is hunting the serial killer. And that's what this story is about. And anything Terry Moore does is an A.
I may have to. What's the name of that one? I may have to pick that up.
Serial. Terry Moore's Serial. Issue 4 just came out. SERIA. I guess a serial killer.
Well, I assumed it wasn't like Fruit Loops.
But he always collects things into big trade paperbacks and hardcovers and stuff afterwards. Matter of fact, sometimes I feel like the old, you've heard my Brooklyn Bridge analogy, have you?
Do share again, even if I haven't.
My Brooklyn Bridge analogy is when you're on the FDR about to cross the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, right. That whole thing with getting in the lane.
You're either a sucker or an asshole.
Yep.
Well, a lot of times I like buying individual issues, so I do. But a lot of times I feel like a sucker for buying Terry Moore's individual issues. Because he always comes out with this beautiful collected edition hardcover, which in the end ends up being cheaper or the same price as the individual issue. So it's kind of like, ooh, I want the really nice hardcover.
So I want to be a sucker. I'm an asshole.
No, I end up being the sucker and getting the issues and not the asshole. I haven't bought one of the hardcovers. Have you read Terry Moore's stuff, Hallow? Does that reach over to you? No.
No, I didn't think about trying. No, I didn't think about trying. I was not on the right frame of mind to experiment with stuff like Strangers in Paradise when it was popular.
No, you know what's weird for me?
I'm still getting my news from Wizard.
Nah, I started Strangers in Paradise late because I remember I picked up the first issue of it, but it was one of the later printings of the first issue, I think, because I'd heard of it kind of, and I picked up, and it was okay, but I don't think I put it on my pull list, so I didn't see any more issues. Then it got some talk. It got to be, it had a good reputation in the early 90s. So I tried another issue of it and was like, But it was one of those books that should have been up my alley. Mm-hmm. So by like issue 15, I went, I'm just putting it on my pull list. I'm like, this is a book I should like. So I'm just going to read it for a while and see if I like it. And sure enough, I did end up liking it. I don't know if Terry Moore's work are tailor-made for TV. Because so much... I can't remember.
That's just making it, I think. I mean, it depends on the TV.
There's this. I think it was. Oh, what was his name? I haven't watched any of his videos in years. That he was one of the Comicsgate guys. Diversity in Comic. I think he changed his name.
Yeah.
He used to. I remember he used to say something when talking about comics and TV. He would say that actors can be charming in ways that comics can't really be charming, but actors can be charming. I would say that that's not always true. I think part of the strength of any Terry Moore story is that his characters his drawing is very charming. They're just so let's go to that back cover again. This is Kachu and Francine. They're all glammed up in this particular picture, Kachu. But he just makes such charming, likable drawings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean, but there aren't many artists who can pull that off.
There are not many artists who can pull that off at all. So I understand what he was saying. But I'm saying when he says it's tailor-made for TV, I wonder, you would have to get charming actresses.
You'd have to get actresses that fit the characters that he's already made.
I'd give Motor Girl an A-. Because, like I said, I just can't give Terry Moore's stuff a B just because his drawings are so. There's something about his visual storytelling, even when the story isn't like. I didn't find Motor Girl particularly one of his more engrossing stories, but there was still a charm to it that I looked forward to every issue. And that's also part of reading this as a serial rather than as one big volume. I think it's a lot more charming reading when you get one issue of. If I get one issue of Motor Girl and read it and then reread it the next week, and then it's in my mind maybe until the next issue comes out, that's a lot different than getting all 12 issues in one book and sitting down and reading it and it's over in an afternoon. Those are just two completely different experiences. And I can see how I might find Motor Girl better reading it serially than I'd find it reading it all together. Just because, like I said, Motor Girl wasn't one of my favorite Terry Moore ones, but I still liked it. And I think that's also the problem. Yeah, the art was good in Motor Girl. For me, it was an outlier. Yeah, to me, it wasn't. I have not bought. What is it? Brubaker and Phillips guys. They just came out with 2 graphic novels in the last. Because usually I buy their comics, but the last couple of things they put out in graphic novels. And I see on Sleepy Reader Show, he and La Raza and Comic Crack all bought. It's like their whole discussion of the graphic novels has been like, is the art as good as it used? Did I like this? Did I not like this? Is the art as good as it used to be? I think the art is a little weaker. I think the art is a little, but I think graphic novels, when you read the whole thing as one kind of chunk, and then it's gone. It's different than if they put that out as 4 or 5 issues, because they all that stuff and that they were talking about it would like be settled by in their own minds would be settled. Yeah, the Reckless books. It's like they wouldn't be thinking about, is this better or worse than their other stuff? That would be settled in their mind 4 months later after reading 4 consecutive issues, I think. And I think that's one of the differences between. It's like, because you read a graphic novel and then it's gone from your mind, unlike a comic book, which you live with. Mm-hmm.
I suppose it depends on the story.
Yeah, that too. It does, but in a way it does, but in a way it doesn't. It depends on you too. It depends on if the person can remember things from month to month.
Well, that's why I'm saying that, is because I'm one of those people who can, things, I just don't have a short-term memory. Like, it's so, I enjoy some, not all, but some things more if I can just read them like, because otherwise I have to go back and read like the last 3 or 4 pages of something before I figure out what's going on.
Oh yeah, that's definitely why people like collected editions.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. But besides that, there's a difference. Yeah, serial reading is better when the story has the right shape. Yeah, it really does have to have the right shape. It has to be written to be a serial story. It has to give you things to think about from month to month.
Right. Yes. That's perfectly put it.
Right. That's your thing.
If it makes you ponder for a while.
Yeah, I don't know Gibran. I'll have to see that. I'm trying to think of what artists I would consider their drawings charming. Sergio Aragonés, probably, but he's on a different sort of, off in a different way than like Terry Moore.
Mark Schultz.
Mark Schultz. Huh. What would I haven't read enough Mark Schultz to know. Because
he doesn't do much stuff, but a lot of the strength of Xenozoic Tales is in the way that the characters communicate with each other. Jack and Hannah. There's a lot of nuance in the body language. Once you notice it.
If I remember correctly, there's a lot of lushness to his drawing too.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is, she's not, I guess, not as mainstream, but I find that Amanda Connor's drawings have a specific.
Oh yeah.
Now
that you mention it, I think so. They do have a real charm to them.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Asterix art is charming. Okay, I haven't seen enough Asterix. I think once we get into the real cartoony ends of things, there's more charm to be found. But those really can't be translated into live action anyway. If you're going to translate Asterix into live action, or anything Sergio Aragonés does into live action, you're gonna have a difficult time.
Amanda's characters are more like the thing. That
they're more like they're more like realistic superheroes. They're more like that.
Asterix live action relies a lot on slapstick, on translating slapstick gags into a live action medium requires heavy use of CGI.
Yeah.
In a way that's different from what you're used to seeing on action movies. So it stops being charming, and with live actors, it skirts being what was I going to say? Farcical almost.
Right. I don't think that Asterix would translate well to live action at all, because they're so.
Well, there are 3 or 4. There are about 4 movies in the last 20 years. Now it's not the same actors now portraying Asterix and Obelix.
Yeah.
So having Gérard Depardieu playing Obelix is always interesting.
Okay, but I don't know. They're just so. They're such stylized characters in the drawings. That was my first comic book, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That I just wouldn't. Even when I was a kid, I loved the comic books, but I'm not sure that I would have dug like a live action version of because you're not meant to see them as live action people.
Yeah. I like anything that cartoony. I don't think would.
Right.
What started this was Fenner 27 saying Terry Moore he thinks would translate to TV well. I don't think like anything charming and cartoony. I don't think translates to TV easily.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I think Will Eisner's characters fit more into gritty for me in general, but maybe some of his women. Well, he draws them more sexy than charming, but they have some of the affectations of charming.
And that's why I didn't mention. That's why I didn't mention Dave Stevens as charming, because when I think of Betty Page, she's there to be the queen of cheesecake.
Right. She's sexy more than charming.
Yeah, she's both though, kind of. I mean, I don't know. It's just my opinion, but she has a charm about her.
Yeah, no, but Betty Page is a good character in Dave Stevens as Dave Stevens writes and draws her. But there is a functionality to her design that prevents her from being completely human.
Almost everything Terry Moore draws is charming. Even his men are charming.
Mm-hmm.
His his ugly people are charming. I don't know Sky Doll at all.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I've seen the comics, so I don't know. At a first glance, I wouldn't say that, but I'd have to read the story to make sure. Yeah, Cliff.
Of course,
Cliff is a charming character, but Betty's not, because she's there to be functional. Just like the way he portrays Howard Hughes and the Doc Savage stand-ins.
Cliff. And I think we should make a distinction between an artist who can draw a charming character and an artist whose art is in general about charming characters. Like, I think Terry Moore, like I said, all his characters have a charm to them. Dave Stevens can draw charming characters. I think Will Eisner could draw charming characters too, if that was necessary. But his femme fatales certainly have a charm to them.
And Sleepy Reader has a good point, actually, that Betty Page, she didn't come out of somebody's head. Like, she was and then got drawn, as opposed to a character being drawn as charming from somebody's head.
What about Terry and the Pirates, Milton Caniff? He had charming character. I think he's one of those guys who had charming characters when they needed to be, but I don't know if I'd call, he might be one of those guys who could draw charming characters and did draw charming characters when they were needed. Interesting. Would Bruce Timm be charming or more cheesecake from the? See, I think there's when we were talking about Asterix and Sergio Aragonés, I think there's a certain what we call, once you go off into the cartooning realm, charming is a different thing. It's still a thing, like, because I do find Bruce Timm's drawings charming, but they're not the type of charming that can be translated to TV that we were talking about too. Anything Bruce Timm did wouldn't easily be live action TV. Hal Foster. I don't think I'd call Hal Foster charming.
Too classical.
Yeah, Caniff's characters looked charming, but were actually gritty. I think that's a good observation right there. They were not. They were way more gritty than they looked. Foster's work seems more idealized than charming to me.
Yeah, that's the problem. Since Foster is one of those guys that took a page from classical painting and sculpture in the way he drew his characters, they're too perfect to be charming. You don't imagine them as having flaws. Yeah. And having charms, you know that person has something that's not quite perfect, but you like that person anyway.
That just reminded me when I first his friend Matt's mother was the model for Scooter Magruder at Cap Cadet and Steve. That's always interesting. I think it was when I first discovered Walton Skizit books, the original Gasoline Alley. I really liked them. The Gasoline Alley stuff from the 20s up in the 30s is A-level comic. So I always said the A-level comics from my lifetime were Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side, and Doonesbury. And I added Gasoline Alley from the 20s and 30s to that. For me, it was that good. And I think it was someone my mother knew was like the grandson of Skeezits, the character Skeezits was based on. He left like a comment in my blog about how he appreciated. He was like he may have been the I forget who I forget exactly how it worked, how the relation to what's his name, King, who did Gasoline Alley, but he was like someone related to the comic strip commented on my blog about it. Margaret, just in a roundabout way. Todd Knox, maybe who am I thinking of? McGuire and his Justice League in the 80s. There may have been some charm to that too. What's his name? Kevin McGuire. Mm-hmm. He had a charmingness to his drawing, I would say, but there was a lot of slapstick in it, so I'm not sure. There's the Charming Beagle. Well, the next comic I got this week is one with my name in it. Tankers. Oh, she got her tanker. Tankers number 2. Where's my name? It's somewhere. Oh, my name's in the back doing the production on it. And so far that they've had varnish on their covers, and I'm the one who puts the varnish. You can see the gloss there.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who has to make the file for the varnish to tell them where the varnish is on. And it was like, it's always funny when they're like, can you get this drop of blood and this drop of blood too? I'm like, I missed the 2 smallest drops of blood. So I had to go back in there and make sure those 2 drops of blood had varnish on them. So all the drops of blood have the proper varnish on them in this one. But yeah, Tankers has been fun. I've enjoyed this one. Did you read that issue?
I did not, because I wanted to read the first one.
Okay.
First, hence my note. If you
right, I think my shop has some first ones. I'll get you one.
Thank you. I'll send it. Just let me know, and I'll send you. I'll Venmo you.
Sleepy's always mad that because only certain comic shops can get Bad Idea comics in. And he's got like 5 comic shops within walking distance of his house. Ooh, she's even got the flyer, and they don't have them. And he's like, Yep, I did this in Photoshop.
The guys at my local place were like, have you heard of Bad Idea Comics? They've got some really good stuff. And I'm like, it's familiar.
Yeah, Photoshop the varnish gets done in. I got to make a varnish channel for it.
Stop it.
Which Bad Idea comic is my favorite? Ooh, that's a good. I've liked most of them so far. I really enjoyed Whalesville, but it's a different kind of thing.
That's definitely that's my favorite so far.
Yeah, I've liked, because Robert Venditti was one of my favorite writers when he was working at Valiant about 10 years ago. And Matt Kint is one of my favorite writers of now and today. So both of them have been doing stuff. And Lapham, David Lapham, another one of my favorites, has been doing stuff for Bad Ideas. So this is up my alley, most of this stuff. But Tankers, I might like Tankers a little better than ENIAC just because it's so much goofy fun.
Have you done any work on this one yet? Have you done any work on that one yet?
We just started getting that one together.
Is it good? Because I am intrigued from the.
The artwork is real nice in it. I don't actually read any of them till I buy them as comics. You know what it's like working on you're working on them, but you're not actually reading them as you work on them. Even when you have to read them to do corrections or something, it's not like, even when you have to look over every single page.
It's always, whenever I'm doing.
It's not like reading a comic.
Yeah, if I'm doing one of the children's or young adult books, I'm in big trouble if I start actually reading it, because then I get it. It takes me 3 times as long to do it. But this one is. In 1970, a legendary filmmaker began production of his latest horror masterpiece on the lot of Los Angeles' Cloverleaf Studios. obsessed with bringing authenticity to the genre. He insisted on casting a real-life occultist to perform a genuine satanic ritual live on camera. What could possibly go wrong? Then something went horribly wrong. In the bloody aftermath, the production was shut down and the soundstage was shuttered until today. What's bad about that? I mean, that's so up my alley. Come on. So I got it. That comes out in July. So I'll be watching that for that. And then the other one too that I thought was cute was Sleigh Bells. That
one I'm just getting together right now too.
And that's where little Bobby Hamilton and his dad go out hunting every Christmas morning, and they accidentally killed a certain red-nosed reindeer on their hunting trip. They should have known better, says the synopsis. And they shouldn't have tried to cover it up, because now the Yuletide peace of a quaint Midwestern farming hamlet will forever be shattered as Santa Claus is coming to town to wreak his revenge. So it's that one. And then Odin's Eye was the other one that I thought was kind of intriguing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one yet.
So anyway, sorry to hijack everything, but it's just I was very excited looking through this.
Excited about some comics, and the backups. I really did enjoy the backups because they were David Lapham and Matt Kint, two of my favorite creators. So, and they're getting really creative with their backups. So I must say I really did like the backups, which is unusual because usually when you get a backup story in a comic, it's not David Lapham. An A-level creator in my mind.
That's all. I mean, all looks like good stuff. And as for the favorite comic, because I have it in my hand, whoever's interested, it's like that's from Walesville. There we go. Like the art is cool. I mean, the kid is kind of weird looking, but what's not to like about an anglerfish that hangs out in a bag on a roller skate?
Bad Idea is my first comic client in a while. Well, I've been doing some custom they're not quite the same. Doing some custom comics over the last few years, but I think I've done. But that's only like 3 or 4 comics, and I think before that, the last time I was doing comics because I refused to do them for a while, was working for Marie Javins at Teshkil Comics. I don't think I've did anything between Marie and the custom comics I've been doing. And that was probably 2010, maybe.
I didn't know you ditched comics for a while. You just refused to do them?
Yeah. Well, I was making good money doing other things.
Oh,
comics don't pay as well as all other graphic design work, just about. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, publishing in general is not a high-paying thing, but I don't know.
And comics are on the low end of publishing.
Exactly. I don't know. I just found that doing packaging and advertising, the money wasn't worth the loss of my sanity.
Yeah, there is that. And the other work I was doing went away, so.
Sure. I forgot what were you doing that wasn't comics?
Oh, for years I was doing white papers and what are they called? Application notes for Grass Valley. Getting all their public. They made. I did it all freelance too, remotely.
Oh,
they made video equipment for news studios, and so for every piece of equipment they had to have literature. And I was one of the people who got the literature together. And the next comic I got, this one was really good. Deep Beyond #5. You got that one too?
Yeah.
Have you read your all 5 of them?
I've read the first 4, but I haven't read the 5th one.
We'll just throw it. This one got more science fiction-y on us.
So they go through the portal?
Yes. The story so far has been it takes place in like 2081 or something like that, or 2085. So much for that no short-term memory.
Well, I graduated in 1985, so I.
Okay. So something happened for them in Y2K. And the world went wrong. Everything fell apart. The air got bad. So now everybody's living in these domed cities. And in one of the domed cities, I don't even know what they were rebelling against. There were rebels who rebelled against the government of the. I'm not even sure, because we abandoned that pretty quickly, the story. Anyway, you got some rebels.
It's a little vague.
The beginning is it was good, but very vague. So you got the dome city, the government, you got the rebels, the plague is if you go outside and breathe the air, you catch the plague and, I don't know, get turned into a plant or something. But meanwhile, the sister of the woman running the dome city is in this underwater station where they're studying things, underwater science station, which is trying to figure out what happened 80 years ago. Disaster happens in the science station, which they say is like, this isn't the first time disaster happens there. But what's the sister? But no, it wasn't her sister.
Wife?
Yes, right. It was her wife, but the other guy had a crush on her. Anyway, this scientist has.
Sisters. There are two sisters. One of them is the scientist who's married to the president. The other, the twin of that sister, is like out looking for her.
Okay, so the scientist is married to the president?
Yep.
Okay. But her ex fiance is the guy.
Yes, I guess.
Who was in love with the sister still, the scientist who's underwater. Who is now married to so I guess she, but anyway,
I mixed up the twins.
He wants to go. The whoever it is, the governor of this city, the mayor of the city, is like, I can't rescue my wife. She's gone. There's nothing I can do. This happened before. There's nothing I can do. Meanwhile, her ex-boyfriend wants to go rescue her. Somehow hooks up with these rebels. One of whom is the twin sister of the girl, the scientist who's underwater. So they hook up. The woman who's running the city wants to kill the rebels. They escape. They go underwater. And like the first 4 issues was all about that. It was all about this sort of conflict between the rebels and the city.
And how the city's trying to keep the rebels from finding this like secret base. What's it called?
Yeah. Whatever it is, C-Lab. I don't know. Trying to get him to so there's all sorts of conflicts going on. And then in this issue, I won't spoil it for you, but it gets more science fiction-y, and we find out about, because there's hints of aliens or something going on in that base. In this issue, we get to find out stuff that's going on, but it gets real science fiction-y, much more science fiction-y than the first 4 issues.
Yeah, my advice is to ignore all like the personal conflict aspects of the plot and just pay attention to like the plague that gives you little bubbly things all over you and
the
place they're trying to find and all the.
And this issue, the whole story changes. It changes from kind of a post-apocalyptic to science fiction more. So it's kind of like. Yeah,
I got to be honest. The story's all over the place, but I still like it.
Yeah, I enjoy it. You know what it is? It's a well-crafted story. It's just told well. The drawings are all done well. It's just very well crafted.
That's the one that's one that feel free to debate on this, but I think that might translate well to a like mini series if given the right CGI.
Probably also because it's an Italian series.
That explains.
And if it follows the European model, it's going to have a beginning, middle, and end rather than
right.
endlessly serialized.
Yep.
Endlessly.
If they let the Italians do it, if they hand it to the Americans, it'll get ruined immediately. As is the custom of our people.
Just don't have the French translate. That's another one I'll show you in a minute.
Uh-oh.
And the last thing I got this week was Savage Dragon and North Force #0, which are the same comic, just about.
Why do they have the same cover?
Because they're all. It's kind of an. He created. I think it was funny because I got confused by this. I think they said North Force first appeared in Savage Dragon 256. This is 259. Then I heard they were putting out a repackaged first appearance of North Force because I guess people wanted a first issue. People liked North Force and wanted they get a 0 issue now, and wanted a first appearance issue of them rather than them just thrown into the Savage Dragon. So he kind of obliged, and I thought he was actually putting out like 256 as is repackaged as issue #0 or 1. But no, he put out this current one that just came out this week. And there's a little bit more narration in this one than there is in this one. He actually added a narration, not even a lot. It's only on like 6 pages. To make it sound more, I guess, to catch people up who never bought Savage Dragon could pick up North Force #1 and understand everything that's going on. But Eric Larson's Savage Dragon is always a fun book. Speaking of Gasoline Alley, that's what it reminds me of because it's taking place in real time. Uh-oh, look what we have here. It's the Howler Desaad.
Oh my
Good
God.
evening, Tim.
I haven't seen you in forever. Where the heck have you been?
In the real world. In the Can you hear me? Is the mic working?
Don't be ridiculous. The real world doesn't exist. It's a myth.
Yeah,
in the ether. Yeah. In the ether. What's going on tonight?
We're talking comics.
We started with potatoes, and we've moved on to apocalyptic monsters and whatever Jared was just talking about.
Because the startling revelation from the Scott and Paolo show was Scott and all of Portugal don't like mashed potatoes.
Yeah, we don't like mashed potatoes.
Everything else felt like a Saturday night until I heard that.
We started with Tarzan and Buck Rogers, and we ended with mashed potatoes.
I mean, of all
Everybody
the things,
loves
all
mashed
the Americanized, of all the Americanized things not to like, mashed potatoes. I mean, there's so much crap. Like, why not? Do you guys like flavor dust? I mean,
What?
Flavor dust. You know, it's the stuff that they sprinkle on like burritos. There are all these foods that are exactly the same thing, but they change depending on the flavor dust. Like cheese.
I don't think those are legal here.
I think that's a great idea, personally.
I think we're getting an echo from Tim somehow.
Yeah, I might have to run and get something, some earphones or something. I'll be right back. Yeah, let me see if I can fix that.
And actually, are you three okay on your own if I take off for like 5 minutes to feed the dogs?
Sure, go feed the dogs.
They're going to be.
We'll hold down the fort.
They're going to be.
Mashed potatoes.
Comics loves
Mashed potatoes is what you eat when you're sick in the hospital.
Mashed potatoes and gravy. Of course, everybody loves mashed potatoes and gravy.
But we don't put gravy in mashed potatoes because we don't use gravy. We use onions and garlic and white wine.
Madness.
And you can't put onions, garlic, and white wine in mashed potatoes.
Madness, I tell you, madness.
Sometimes we try some Angolan chili peppers, but we put those on everything.
Oh, I did not see Benitez's Lady Mechanica going to Image. I've only read a couple issues of Lady Mechanica, but I've collected digitally the covers. So I love the covers of Lady Mechanica. Sometimes what I do is I just make PDFs of the covers of comics I like. So I can just flip through the covers. And I've done that with Lady Mechanica. but it always comes out some weirdly infrequently that it's never been on my pull list. And I've only read a couple of issues of it that I found. But that's interesting. I'm going to have to check that out once it does. I think mashed potatoes are a New World food, so they must have originally. I imagine they thought of to mash them long before they got to Europe.
I thought it was the British who invented them because they're so tasteless.
Well, you add butter and cream, salt, whatever you want to them, or you can have them, just as a tasteless mash with a great texture. Oh, and I ended up borrowing a couple of things. What is it? Portuguese typical is punched potatoes.
Yeah, you bake the potato, and then before you serve them, you punch them.
Germans invented them.
The Germans.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot trust the Germans.
Oh, Smithers, the Germans are mad at me, Smithers. Garlic mashed potatoes, they're good. I can remember back when I've never liked powdered potatoes, of course. But back when I was in high school, I used to be an assistant cook at a religious shrine. And we used to serve cafeteria style for people. So, of course, we'd have those powdered potatoes. And I had to figure out a way that I could, because it's like, I can't serve these. They're terrible. I felt guilty every time I served them. So, and the way you make powdered potatoes is you boil water and milk and put butter in them, and then the potato flakes. And we were, of course, doing these in giant pots. I found out that if I diced up a bunch of onions and boiled it in there with them, it took away the powdered potato flavor. And that's how I served them from then on in, and people liked them. Image Comics seems to have a nice lineup of releases lately. I've been getting a lot of what have I been getting that's new from Image? That Noctera book, Silver Coin, whatever that one was. I've been buying a few new Image things lately. Mashed potatoes with hot sauce and salt. There's a good one. Yeah. There's a famous story about a German count feeding his whole village potatoes. They hated them before because they were eating the leaves. They were eating the potato leaves.
That's funny. I've turned my volume down. Not a week ago, I had 20 pairs of earbuds where they're like one side worked on each one. You know what I mean? This week I can't find a one. They're like, there's nowhere, I picked up a few things today. Maybe it would bring up conversation. You want me to show a few things? Or
Sure, show some stuff.
A lot of this stuff is just so I don't have to dig in the box, Have them on the shelves,
We all know. Cheap trade paperback.
The first black and white series from 1996 with Neil Gaiman, Simon Bisley, Howard Chaykin, Brian Boland.
The Mark Chiarello edited one.
Yeah, I got it out. I found a volume too. I mean, they were on sale, but which is why I got it. But they hold up, and it still blows my mind. This is over 25 years ago. So
that's because the Mark Chiarello, who was an artist who was hired in the early 90s to be DC's art director, he was behind those.
Nice.
And he really knows his stuff. So it was his idea to come up with. He actually edited, like I said, he was art director there, but he actually edited those black and white ones. So,
nice.
And it was him who got everybody to do them. It was, him, like your average editor, since he's an artist and he was friends with all the artists, they would do work for him.
I think they're fantastic, and
they're really good.
I'm going to get all the volumes. I mean, I've got scattered issues here and there, but I have all the first one and stuff. It's some of the best stuff they do. So, I mean, I think, I don't know if anybody was into the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but this is the Black Dossier.
Is that the trade paperback?
I have the hardback. This actually came out in one hard shot. It came out in a hardback, and I have volume. I have the original hardback, but this is just a soft cover that was on sale for $8, and now I can rip out everything inside and not feel weird. The 3D glasses and everything.
The original hardback I also have. I actually bring it in to show my students, some of my pre-press students sometimes. Mm-hmm. But that's the only one that's printed like Alan Moore's vision. All the different papers, because there's like a dozen different paper stocks in the original one.
In the original one, yeah.
Yeah, but it was too expensive to do for any of the other versions.
Well, somewhere along the line, when League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Century was coming out, the one where he ended up making Harry Potter the Antichrist, and his wand, his penis shot lightning, and the book and everything like that. He did an interview where he said he was talking with his daughters or something, and he realized that he can tell everybody everything they want to know about the 1880s and the 1950s, and a lot about the 60s and the 80s. But when it comes to like the last 20 years, he's sort of like, I don't know. I don't know what people, I don't know these people. He's immersed himself in all this stuff and all this literature that, I'm totally glad you said this was probably like the closest thing to his vision, because it is dense reading, but enjoyable. Yeah. It all kind of still comes together.
Daisy, I had to have Bunch explain to me all of the references in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because there's so many British pop culture references in that Black Dossier specifically, that it was like one day Bunch just explained them all. I was like, because I got a quarter of them.
I can't remember if it's. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Daisy.
No, I was just going to say I just wrote that down because I didn't know the existence, and now I have to pick up that book.
Yeah, Black Dossier.
I knew Alan Moore was starting to go deep and eclectic when I can't remember if it was Century or The Tempest, but he brought out Charlie Chaplin's Hitler. And then, I was just like, the Dictator, Charlie Chaplin's Dictator, and just in this little scene of him on a Jeep on the beach, there's all these little things that were like deep references, you really had to know your stuff on that one. And then this is the original 4 issues. I have it. I have the original 4 issues of the Books of Magic, Timothy Hunter, years before Harry Potter, if you will. But this is where you had, who was it? Scott Hampton, Charles Vess. Each issue, it was a 4-issue prestige miniseries where you had the Trenchcoat Brigade, Constantine, Phantom Stranger, Mystery, and all of them. Tim Hunter had the potential to be the greatest wizard ever. He just had to accept magic. So they gave him a tour where Neil Gaiman, it was fabulous. He put all the magic together in the DC universe and into like this coherent little like history, which is fantastic.
I have the originals, or I either have or had the originals of those books. I had a whole box of comics stolen when I was in California, including all of the first printings of the Sandman books.
Oh no!
Yep.
Oh, that's terrible. I couldn't find number 3 forever. I've gone on about how I would in high school, I try to get to an hour away to a comic book shop trying to get this, and I missed number 3. Years later, I was married, and I was in a place called Johnson City. And when I found issue number 3 of this, it was signed by Charles Vess and Neil Gaiman. Charles Vess lives in Abingdon, which is like an hour from me now. So it makes sense how this stuff floats around. I can pop up at a movie theater in Abingdon on a Saturday or a Sunday day, and it's nothing not to see Charles Vess walk out of it. We're snug. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Paolo and Scott were talking about the Walt Newton verse yesterday.
Oh, I love that stuff. Oh, dude. Oh. I've got a Philip Jose Farmer book here somewhere. I was reading the title. I finally got a copy of Tarzan Alive. Yeah.
Oh.
We got That Sucks. Having your comic stolen, not Books of Magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I found this for
Books of Magic was in that box, but it probably would have been because it was without the game.
Yeah. My famous story is that I've had 3 great robberies, but the one that kind of really hurt was the one in 2010 where I was loading up the U-Haul by myself in Roanoke, Virginia. And I thought it was one box, but I figured out it was 2 boxes, and it was my Jack Kirby Silver Age Marvel stuff and my Incredible Hulk run, the good stuff. They lucked up grabbing 2 boxes that were really good,
Right. That's what gets me, is that whoever took mine, I don't know when they found the time to flip through it, but they clearly knew, they were either just really big comic fans. I don't know. I kind of live in fear that they just went to somebody's children and got all torn up.
I feel like there's a weird karma that comes along. I mean, if you're desperate enough to steal comics, then you've got some habits, And I always tried to figure out how I missed this from like 99, I think. It's Steve Rude doing Hulk versus Superman. And I finally figured out what was going on. I had a 1-year-old, and no mail service on the internet yet. We were right there on the cusp of being able to order your comics online. But I finally got this, and I'm so glad it's Steve Rude art, because even though Roger Stern wrote it, and I think he's a great writer, it didn't seem to be thick on plot. So
I remember enjoying that one.
Well, I went to a page where I don't think,
right?
Huh?
It's mostly a fight scene, right?
Towards the end of it, and I think in the fight scene I saw, the Hulk had it looked like he was a robot. Again, that Hulk robot. That if anybody's watched Cavern of Chaos knows that I think there was one floating around in the 70s through all the books. I think he returned in here.
Howard Hulk.
Nice. And then 2 more real quick ones, and I'll shut up. But I finally have all 3 volumes of Alan Moore. Oh, the other writer, of Miracle Man. This second volume was impossible to find. I almost bought it for between $20 and $30 on eBay. Then I found it for $8 out of the blue.
Wasn't Marvel supposed to reprint those, and they never did?
This is the Marvel ones. They got all the way up to around issue 20. I think somebody can help me out. They got Neil Gaiman's first story arc going, and then they quit. They had I think it's issue 26 or something, the one that people's been waiting on, including me, since like 1992, the last issue.
Another one didn't know about that, Steve Rude. Hulk's, I get. You know what it was? I think in the late 90s, Steve Rude was below the radar.
He was having problems. I don't know when he did this. He did this X-Men miniseries that was knocking it out of the water, and then he just disappeared.
The Atom?
Yeah, that was him. I don't know what year that came out, but I have it. I was there when it was going on, and he just disappeared. And Marvel had to finish it with someone else. And then he did an open letter where he really talked about, I think it's bipolar. He talked about his mental health. He practices his craft every day, but he just finally just put out this open letter to anybody he's messed up their work, saying, I'm just dealing with stuff. So I think that really affected his work in the 90s and stuff. And I'm always just glad to see that he and Mike Barron are still getting along.
Ribic finished it. Okay.
But I tell you something, I've read this entire arc before, you know what I mean? And it's really odd. I don't know if it was the last 5 or 6 years of politics or something, but I didn't realize how extreme left this book was. You know what I mean?
Miracle Man?
No. Warren Ellis's Stormwatch. This finishes off volume 1 where he came on, and then there was 11 issues that was volume 2, and that leads into The Authority. Well, it's a hardback I found for like $5, a little beat up. And I've read this. I've read, the Warren Ellis's Stormwatch and all that stuff at least 3 or 4 times. But something about reading it this time, I did not realize how anti-American and how far left the story arc is. Now I can pick up on it. They even put down mashed potatoes. No, they don't.
I don't see that as far left. I see that as sometimes in British comic book writers, there's an anti-American strain.
Yeah. But usually it's tongue in cheek. At least there's a humor about it, kind of. You know what I mean? Not so.
But I also think it's because what shocks us about it is because the British writers often have. A lot of times British writers have sort of this conflicted relationship with their own government's history. Because, when you're when you're English, your government's been tyrannical a lot of the times,
Yeah.
but also has been involved with, human freedom a lot of the time. So there's always this sort of don't trust the government, even when you do trust them. And I think when they I think they occasionally transfer that over to the American. We get to play the role of the British government and their stories. And I don't think sometimes it comes across as mean. I don't know if it's, and I think it does but I think it has more to do with the story, because it's like because like that Stormwatch stuff and the Authority is about authoritarianism, and the only ones on the planet who have the political power in that world to be authoritarian are the Americans. So the American government is naturally going to be the villain of the piece, kind of, or American authoritarianism is going to be the villain of the piece. So I don't know if left-right is the right description of it.
Yeah, Warren Ellis still grew up at the end of the punk era, so there's always going to be a bit of an iconoclastic streak in the way that they handle authority.
Iconoclastic's a good word for it.
Yeah, and you'll notice the way that he handled his Doom 2099 run, where he built up Doom to take over the United States, and then immediately had it crash around him.
I'm building up that Doom 2099 run, so I'm so glad you know it, because when I finally get around to reading and stuff, I'll be, hey Paolo, where you at?
There's a very large trade with all of Warren Ellis's issues, including that guide to the new United States that explains how the society functions now that Doom's taken over.
Nice.
Yeah. Alan Moore has his stuff is mostly anti-British government. But like I said, Warren Ellis's stuff is the same a lot of times, except with, like I said, Alan Moore's stuff is so very specifically British, with the Americans on this playing a sideshow, kind of like V for Vendetta. That's his iconoclastic British government as it gets. And I think Warren Ellis comes out of that same mindset.
Yeah, what I remembered, and I'm glad you brought out V for Vendetta, and I didn't want to talk over you, is that basically if you were living in Britain in the 80s, this was everything Margaret Thatcher was saying about how V came about. It was experimentation on gay people, and everything that was getting spit out of Margaret Thatcher's mouth is what he shaped that huge 90s future from.
Yeah, that's why I was splitting up the left and anti-American. I don't think that's what he was saying. So I was, that's why I said I don't think left-right apply to Warren Ellis's view of what was going on. It was anti-Americanism that had nothing to do with the left-right. Yeah, the British also stuff.
I did not mean that left meant anti-American. I was just commenting on New Eyes reading Stormwatch. It's a conversation piece based on work, not on real life politics.
Alan Moore and Grant Morrison are older than Warren Ellis, so they were already adults when Thatcher took over.
Right. Yeah, and
so
Warren Ellis.
They have a different view of Warren Ellis, because Ellis cut the tail end of it, and by the time he started writing, the United Kingdom was heavily involved already in the British project. They had people like John Major who strengthened ties with the European Union. So the United Kingdom was becoming a part of that centralized world government that was more optimistic at the time than what the Thatcher government was. But I think that the British people didn't know, looking back, they didn't know how to compute what Thatcher was, because up until then, conservatism was highly based on tradition, and Thatcher was not traditional. And she was that neoconservatism that is more libertarian, and that's something that was completely uncommon in the United Kingdom. So people imagining that Thatcher was going to take over and put people in concentration camps, that's them trying fitting the image of traditional authoritarianism onto Thatcher. Of course, going to war with Argentina over the Falkland Islands didn't help that idea.
Oh yeah. But I will say, for anyone who, in my opinion, like I was probably like 10 when this stuff was going on in America, in Virginia, in Appalachian Mountains, which is its own little country in America. You know what I mean? So to discover Alan Moore, and then for him to say this came from Thatcher's England is how I sort of pictured where I got the inspiration for this. That's very influential on how people will see a political figure in another country. When you're an impressionable young person and you're hearing about them talk about their country.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of England and Warren Ellis, I read this week digitally on Hoopla the Warren Ellis James Bond Omnibus, drawn by James Masters. It was really good. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
Cool.
Cute dog alert.
I'm sorry. I'll put him down and her down.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think anyone's complaining. But it's like I generally like Warren Ellis, but I generally like his indie stuff more than, say, his Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really have high hopes for. I mean, I never bothered reading them before, but I just happened to be. I was like, you know what? I haven't taken anything out on Hoopla, which is the library app. You borrow digital comics from the library. And I said, you know what? Let's see what I can find. I was looking for some. I was looking to see if they had the Planetary Omnibus, just for the heck of it. I have all the issues of Planetary, but I don't have the Omnibus. So it was like, let's see. And instead, I found the James Bond Omnibus, and it's probably when I was a teenager in college, I read all the James Bond books, the original Ian Fleming books. Really liked them. I read a couple of the post-Ian Fleming books, didn't really like them. I've never been a huge fan of the James Bond movies. I mean, they're okay. I like some and don't like others.
Right.
But they're nothing I watch regularly. So this might be the second best James Bond thing I've seen or read.
Okay. I have a question. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I consider Planetary his best work because it shows how versatile he is, and it's sort of like Ellis isn't putting any opinions or really pointing at anything like that. It's like he's serving the story. If he does the genre of spies, he does spies. You know what I'm thinking of, right? We read Planetary. So when he does Bond, is that what he's doing? Is he doing this is a James Bond story, not a Warren Ellis James Bond story?
He was doing this is a James Bond story.
Awesome. Yeah.
But there was one weird part in the beginning that was sort of anti-James Bond. I was like, because I read it, it was only like 3 or 4 pages. And it was the whole, it was like 3 or 4 pages. And I'm like, and looking back in it, in hindsight, I was like, is this some editorial interference here? Because there was about 3 or 4 pages in the beginning where he goes into, what's his name? Q, is that his boss? Right. Q and money. And there's this whole James Bond isn't politically correct anymore sequence. And it was just like, what?
Yeah.
And then they went back to the James, and the rest of it was this James Bond story.
When was he ever politically correct?
I don't know.
I mean, I realize that this is one of the unpopular opinion thing. I mean, this is kind of like how I don't like the Beatles. I don't get it. I don't like James Bond. I don't get it. It just, I don't know. Just he is a character.
Have you ever read the original novels?
I've read several of the original novels.
If you don't like James Bond, why did you read several of the original novels?
Because everybody else loved it, and I kept looking for a reason to like it. I was like, well, okay, maybe
They're fun adventure stories. That's pretty much, or fun spy stories.
fun adventure stories if you're a guy because you can relate to the character. But it's just
You can't.
it just seems. Okay, I'm not going to get into like the big thing about this. I'm just saying that for me, James.
I can understand you not relating to the character, but to me, James Bond was not
someone
someone
really
you related.
annoying to hang out with. Like that is a guy I do not want to meet under any circumstance.
Yeah, you don't. That was the whole point of James Bond. You did not want to run into James Bond.
Yeah, James Bond is sort of it's sort of the fantasy of a guy who deep down is a psychopathic killer who has killed a lot of people in the name of patriotism, in the mission. Right. And it's fascinating because you look at all kinds of facets. It's a fantasy. It's just entertainment. It's this world where they have a formula for villains and things like that, and it can be fun. I don't think it's something you really want to delve into. Like, and I'm being serious here. I can watch Still Magnolias. I can watch How to Make an American Quilt in The Notebook, and The Notebook is the only one I can handle. The other two are not for me. You follow me?
Okay, same here. I can't watch any of those. That's like that's like Chinese water torture for me. I can't. Or anything with like.
If you're a boy reading the original Ian Fleming novels, you're probably a little too young.
Titillation, a lot of titillation, a lot of tongue in cheek. Pussy galore.
There's nothing against them. I'm just saying that it's not for me.
Also, I think Sean Connery changed the entire perception of James Bond.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Is that thing about being charming?
Yeah.
Yes, we're back to being charming. We had a whole discussion about drawings being charming and such, but Sean Connery made him extremely charming. He is not charming in the books.
No.
He's a practical realist.
See, here we go back to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Alan Moore. Alan Moore has a James Bond-like character in there, and he's a prick. And that's James Bond. Yeah.
That's the normal way to and also manifest on British inferiority. That could have something to do with it. Alice did have some interesting Avatar work. Yeah.
There is a bit because the United Kingdom was not one of the major powers after the end of World War II. So having a British spy who killed enemy spies is a way to deal with that inferiority complex. We are the ones who are actually taking care of the world's problems, but nobody knows we're spies. Not like the Americans who just invade countries and blow everything up.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes back to the British. The British doing a comment on American imperialism.
I would say your early high school is maybe early high school is about when boys should start reading James Bond novels. Maybe.
I think I've only read 3, to be honest, and I'm not saying they were repetitive, but I caught the formula. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it kind of got a little predictable of.
Right. That's It's
you will always hear Bunch Bly and I refer to the James Bond psycho shower. That's how you knew he was nuts. They had one of the sequences in the book that he would do was he'd take a shower where first he'd put the water on as cold as possible and get in it, and then he'd turn it to as hot as possible.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Go ahead, try that one day. You got to be a psycho to do that.
Yeah, the closest I've come is jumping from a hot tub into the snow, and everybody said, "Oh, it's so great! You're in the hot tub, and then you jump in the snow, and you jump back in the hot tub." And I'm like, "That was terrible. That was horrifying." Why would
in the movies, they only deal with that a little bit in the first Daniel Craig movie in Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Royale was the only book that I found remotely, like at least that gave him a reason for being such a dick. You could sort of relate to like something, to that whole thing, sort of.
And in the movie, after years of having charming actors playing James Bond, and Daniel Craig is not charming, when he tries to be charming, he kind of looks like a gorilla in a suit. But it's the part where he's arguing with M. That why does he want to be a 00 agent, and does he know that 00 agents have a short lifespan? there's the idea there that James Bond becoming a 00 agent is supposed to be self-destructive.
Yeah.
Diana Rigg paid the price for if you get involved with him personally. That's, you know.
And Sleepy Reader, I have to say the vast majority of James Bond fans agree with Sleepy Reader. I'm in the minority who is not really a fan of the movies, but I loved the books. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I really loved the Warren Ellis James Bond omnibus. I thought, and a lot of it was what did I just say his name was? Masters. Jim Masters, the artist of the, who it's real annoying to me that he doesn't get his name in the omnibus title because he drew the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, now that you said that,
I've never heard of him before, but he was.
Yeah. Now that you said like Warren Ellis wrote a James Bond story, not a Warren Ellis Bond story, I really want to check it out now. You know. Yeah. I don't know, but I tell you, I'd like to be the next James Bond, and I don't know the guy's name, but have you seen the trailers for Suicide Squad, the next one?
No.
Oh, okay. There's a guy playing Bloodsport in it, and there's just something about that guy that I can see him being a British spy. You know, I can see him being Bond, and I've seen him in 2 or 3 other things. I can't believe I can't think of his name. But that's what's great about this show. We're going to have people who do the work get in the comments. They'll be like, that dude, you know. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I only read the first issue of it, digitally, but it's got me hooked on Hoopla. I'm gonna put it on my pull list. Is the Department of Truth, which is a book. Oh, Idris Elba, he's the one that a lot of people want to be James Bond, I've heard.
And I think it happened organically. Like, I think a lot of us thought that about a couple years ago. And it was just, I don't know, it was nice to be part of a kismet. You know what I mean? Like a zeitgeist. I was glad I was there. Like, that's just what I was thinking. You know, I'm like, I could be big on Twitter for a minute. Great. You know.
But Department of Truth, I've seen that book in the store. It says, I think it's an Image book. I can't even remember who does it. But it's one of those that kind of caught my eye with its million covers. And it's been a little bit hot, but not really, not like Something's Killing the Children hot. But I've seen a few people talk about it and get it. And I finally, it was on Hoopla. And I said, you know what, I'll get the first trade and give it a read because I kind of had an idea it was about conspiracy stuff. And it turns out it was. The whole first issue was this guy being dragged into the conspiracy stuff. But the conceit of the book is that the more people who believe in a conspiracy, the more real it becomes. So they try to tap down conspiracy stuff because the more people, and it actually changes history when more people believe in conspiracies. And of course, at the end, I only read the first issue, but the big reveal at the end of the first issue is the leader of the Department of Truth is Lee Harvey Oswald.
When it came to Kennedy, he went, I'll do it myself. You know?
So that I was like, all right. I'm like, after reading that, I'm like, I wish I picked it up. So I think issue 10 is the next one out. I want to see if my comic shop has any back issues of it.
Department of Truth, right?
Yeah. Because I really enjoyed that first issue. I'm just gonna. It's gonna be like Ice Cream Man was one of those books I always meant to pick up and never did. And then I saw it on Hoopla and read some of it. And I'm just putting that on my pull list now. It started with like issue 18 on my pull list. I'm just like, that's fine.
Nice.
I'll start there.
Is the Something's Killing the Children? Is that a good series?
I've read some of it. It's decent.
Okay, I just saw that last. Yes,
it's a monster hunting. It's a monster hunting series. What amazes me most about Something is Killing the Children is how hot it stayed for a few years now. Because usually what happens is okay, Something to Killing the Children reminds me of Buffy a little bit. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. I almost picked up the first bound volume of it, and then I was like, I'd rather talk to you guys first to see if it's
I read the first volume of it digitally, and it was pretty good.
Mhm.
I haven't gotten back to it. I don't know where that came from.
Oh, I got an alert on my YouTube, and it's that your show is on because I've hit your bell.
Oh, all right.
But it's told me an hour later. It just now told me you're on. So.
Like, what amazes me most about something is killing the children is people were like rushing and fighting to get that 8th printing of issue number 1. Something's Killing Children feels like a standard horror to me. Not bad, but not unique. That might be how I'd describe it.
I feel that way with a lot of things, and there's no way around it. It's my age and how long I've been reading stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that can happen.
It's a me problem, not.
I'm against standard horror. I'm fine with.
Daisy is a horror fan. She's one of I have certain friends. I have about half a dozen friends who all talk on Facebook and all horror fans. And the one thing I notice about horror fans, especially when it comes to movies, is they just like horror movies. They like the good ones. They like the bad ones. They like all the ones in between. If it's a particularly bad horror movie, they'll still be like, "Oh my god, this movie was terrible." But it's they still like it in some level because it's a horror movie.
That's usually when it's terrible, like Wrong Turn 4. We just saw recently, and that it was hilariously terrible.
See, this is what I was going to ask. I love my Friday the 13th, I love my Friday the 13th. I love my Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't consider them horror movies. I end up cracking up through them.
Slasher films isn't really my genre, but yeah, I do. I should probably read Ice Cream Man because that sounds like I actually like horror movies for horror movies.
Ice Cream Man is excellent. Like I said, you can read any individual issue of Ice Cream Man. It's sort of an anthology tale of stories. But it was like, I think when I showed you the last one, and sometimes it usually tries to be clever, and sometimes it succeeds, and sometimes it doesn't.
That's okay.
And like the last issue really succeeded for me. That was the one where it made us the killer. Because there's this telethon going in to save the character's life, and he's like, and all of a sudden, Ice Cream Man was like, this is really a comic. It's you, who's reading it, who's going to kill this character or not. You can stop right now. You can stop reading right now, and he lives. But if you hold on, but I have to tell you, the dog died too. If they turn the page. Daisy does not like when animals are hurt in movies. I was thinking that as I read it. I'm like, it's like if you keep reading this, the guy will die, and so will the dog, and it'll be your fault.
I'd still read it. Well, let's just be clear. I don't care what happens to cats, but with the dog, I literally have to fast forward through the first 20 minutes of John Wick. Like, I love the John Wick movies. Absolutely. What's not to like? It's just a guy, Keanu Reeves, just
you got a John Wick fan over here. She loves the John Wick movies. They're big in our house. Yes, I'm just saying, Daisy.
But I have to go. Like, I have to. Whoever else is in the room has to tell me when it's over.
I don't think it matters that they didn't show the dog die.
No, there's a noise. There's like a noise, and like that it happens. I mean, I have 2 eagles. What am I going to? I have a basset and a lab.
I feeling better. She acting better.
Dog dying.
Or you?
You know how I've told you I read all my comics twice before I put them away? The second time through that Ice Cream Man story, I stopped without turning the page, so everybody lived.
I think I muted me instead of.
That was very sweet. I appreciate that.
That's how the author shows Michael's thoughts.
Oh, that's my books.
I read that too. I read it before because I wasn't allowed to see the movie, but I was allowed to buy it.
Oh, you read it as a kid, even?
Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to see rated R movies even after I was 17. I mean, of course I did because I went over to friends' houses and was, that's how I saw Alien when that first came out when I wasn't supposed to. But everything else I learned that if I bought the novelizations, that nobody was monitoring my book.
Have you read? Yeah, Rachel Rising by Terry Moore.
Oh, okay.
That'd be a good one. That's the one we mentioned before. That his drawings are all charming. He did a horror book called Rachel Rising.
I'll tell you a book I read in 5th grade that had everybody like calling me a liar for like a week. You know, but I had Gremlins. I bought the novelization of Gremlins. And if you read the first chapter of Gremlins, it's got a epilogue in it. Prologue. It's got a prologue in it right in the very beginning of the book that tells you where the gremlins come from. So I went to school telling people where the gremlins came from, and where I had just read it, I stood my ground, and I got called a big liar in 5th grade. Yeah. Yeah. I always associate ELO for some reason with me getting lied to because somebody had a radio on and ELO was playing on the radio.
I love that.
I did in the 7th grade, I did a book report on a Conan novel. Then I had to bring it in to prove it was a novel and not a comic book.
I can totally see that. My 7th grade novel faux pas was when all of the girls in my group were passing Caligula around, and my mother was the one who discovered that. I was so pissed too because I was only like a third of the way through, but she discovered that one and she tore it up and tossed it out, but that was up until that point. I got away with reading whatever books I wanted to. And a Conan book report. I like that.
Conan book report.
Were there pictures? Did you draw little pictures of Conan?
No, I did not draw pictures. Straightforward book report. I've always wanted to read I Am Legend. I've heard the book is really good.
I'm telling you
that it is a good book.
Vincent Price's Last Man on Earth is the best adaptation of that. I've never read the book, but I can already tell it's the best adaptation. And it's his best movie. I've never read the book, but I know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I will watch anything with Vincent Price in it, or at least I thought I did, until I saw what the hell was it? It was something about like Vincent Price plays the Lord of the Manor, and it's about witches, and it's like it's very rapey, and like I spit on your grave as much as anyone else, but it's like it's not really a revenge tale. It's more but it's Vincent Price, and I kept expecting him to be cheesy. He wasn't cheesy. He was just an asshole.
I think it's hilarious. You can handle the I Spit on Your Grave movies, and I've got to take a break when I watch them. Like, I'm not saying they upset me, but I'm just sort of like, sometimes it gets a little too real. I like it to keep fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, let's keep it to where it's a story. You know what I mean? Let's not get, you know.
I can handle anything like that when there's, when I know that just desserts are coming. Like if it's a tale of just like tragedy and, you know, it doesn't end well for anybody, then it's worse for me than, well, no, I guess I can't say that because I loved Hereditary, which isn't rapey, but I mean, nothing worked out for anyone.
You liked Hereditary? You are another one of those people I'm really needing to sit down and talk to so you can explain to me what you're loving in that movie. I mean, when the girl got her head lobbed off by the telephone pole, I felt bad because I was like, damn, something finally happened. But I mean, I was like,
I liked it. I liked Midsommar as well, only because the thing I liked the best about it was that as we were watching it, because now I knew the style of movies by that person, that as soon as they panned past a bear in a cage, the instant they did that, I was like, oh shit, that bear's coming back later. That bear's coming back, and I don't know how, but it's coming back. So I kept waiting for the bear to come back, and then the bear comes back, and it's freaking awesome. It's
There's no way they're having a bear in the movie that doesn't kill someone.
Hereditary remind me of these like sort of horror B movies from the 70s when I was in the backseat waiting for like Grease to play. You know what I mean? There's a Steve Niles book I'm going to grab real quick.
Yeah, I can't let a Steve Niles mention go by without Richard Corbin Steve Niles Bigfoot book, which I think is out of print. But if you can find Bigfoot. That one, it's excellent.
Hold on. I'm writing this down again. Steve Niles. I'm writing this down.
Steve Niles and Richard Corbin, Bigfoot. Bigfoot is a straight up horror monster. It's good stuff.
I got a thing for Bigfoot. I got to admit.
before Steve Niles did Bigfoot, he did The Nail with Rob Zombie and this wrestler fights Bigfoot, who's a killer. The Nail.
That's awesome. I got a lot of reading to do. It's I remember Rob Zombie came by the bullpen one time. Yeah, I don't know if you were there that day. Dave.
Yeah, I didn't meet Rob Zombie. I missed that one.
Ooh, that's nice art. Yeah, Rob Zombie, I didn't recognize him because I thought he was going to be like 6 feet tall, and he was just like this tiny little guy. And he talked a bunch, but he wouldn't really talk to anybody else. He wasn't.
Rob Zombie was like just an art school kid.
Yeah.
Who happened to one day put together a band that somehow hit big.
Well, you know, he worked on the Pee-wee's Playhouse TV show doing sets and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the only one of the few things that have actually ever scared him was the first time he saw Paul Rubens get off an elevator to arrive on set. Because Paul Rubens, when he wasn't Pee Wee Herman, he grew his mullet out and grew a goatee and looked damn evil. And he actually scared a 20-year-old Rob Zombie, you know.
I remember, didn't he have that the goatee and the mullet when he got caught in the movie theater?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm one of the few people that thinks he should not have been he shouldn't have been crucified for that. He was in the proper place.
He should never be crucified for that. I mean, what the fuck? Oh,
that's what they're there for.
What?
Yeah, I don't think. That's one of the few things that is a hill I'll die on. He was in an adult theater. That those places are nasty for like 30 years to begin with in 1990. And that's where those things went on. He was in the right place. If you're in a library, you want to read a book. You go to an adult theater.
What are you supposed to be doing in an adult theater? I'm confused. Like, if it's not that, I mean, isn't that what they're for? And why
Daisy, have you ever read the old 1950s EC horror comics?
I have. I don't think I have, or if I have, I've forgotten.
That's what I was actually going. I didn't want to interrupt her. That's what I was going to tell her. I spit on your gravism. She said people get just desserts. That's the EC Comics horror formula. The bad people get it in the end. You know.
If you were to look, they're fun old 1950s comics. The main problem with them is they've been ripped off so many times that they're not as original as they once were because everybody ripped them off.
No, but I kind of like stuff like that. Like I love watching old horror movies.
But if you ever want to check where a lot of our pop culture horror comes from, look at the old EC, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, all that stuff.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. And it's like, I mean, it's like watching what the hell is it? The Thing from Beyond Space is basically Alien.
Breaking up on me. I didn't hear you. You broke up on me.
I think it's The Thing from Beyond.
Is she breaking up on anyone else? Or is it just me?
No.
It's just you.
It's just you. Breaking up with you. I'm sorry.
Just me? Let me try leaving and coming back.
Okay, you can do that.
Keep talking, Daisy. Keep going.
I'm just gonna keep. The Thing from Beyond Space, isn't that's the thing? The one that's like basically Alien, right?
I think so. You know what's bad is I had the B movie poster in my head. I think you're right. I'm gonna go ahead and go on the limb with you on that one. Yeah.
It's that's basically and them is the giant ants is basically aliens. It's
I don't know if them is. I actually had that on DVD. That's actually been one movie that's been watched since I was 6, whenever it came on in the house, right there at the original King Kong. Them was more about it was just a silly B movie of giant ants, or it was about an anti-government movie about nuclear war. I mean, just saying, doing nukes and stuff.
I do get my giant ant movies mixed up because there have been a couple of them, but there's one that it's really weird. Like when you watch it in context of, hey, this is basically aliens. It's basically aliens. Like there's a little girl who's the only survivor of an attack, and they got to destroy the queen, and it's all you just have to.
YouTube, one of the first things that YouTube ever broke my heart on is when there's some guy, and I bet you anything the video is at least 10 years old, but he went in and explained how Geiger and all them, he had all this stuff saying that the first Alien movie is really about rape. the original Geiger designs for the alien is that those are giant penises for heads.
Well, I think that's a little bit obvious.
I didn't catch it. I'm like,
It's a giant dick on an alien body.
I thought it was a haunted house movie with a ghost in a house set in space. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was just a haunted house horror story with a sci-fi theme. You know what I mean? Like, silly me,
I don't know what. Well, I mean, of course, I didn't. I completely missed it too when I was, in 1979. I was 12 or 13. I didn't recognize the giant penis on the alien heads, but
I'm with you, And we had one kid in the trailer park that had the toy. I still didn't see it. I had it right in front of me. Nothing was staring at my face like a bullet. I'll tell you that. But anyway.
Hold on, I'm trying to find that Vincent Price movie that I was talking about.
Oh yeah. In the meantime, this has nothing to do with the Mr. X movie, but I'm finding Mr. X everywhere. This is a 1999 horror novel by Peter Straub called Mr. X. I had to pick it up. I was like, I'm going to add it to this Mr. X collection I have going.
And yes, I do love Mask of the Red Death and Theater of Blood. I love those movies. All those Vincent Price things. Hold on, what the hell is the name of this thing?
In the meantime, did anybody watch the 1984 American Horror Story season?
I got about halfway through, and I love Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billy, but I don't know. I'm a little allergic to the 80s, and I kind of forgot about.
I ended up laughing all the way through it at a certain point. But it's not a big spoiler, but anybody who was killed at Camp Crystal Lake, whatever they called it, became a ghost and were trapped. But at the end of it, like in 2000, like in modern day, 2020 or whatever, one of the ghost girls who is still all 80s and has the hair looks at this couple that survived and said, "Go out into the real world and tell them about the 80s. We'll keep the spirit of the 80s alive here." And I was just like dying. I was rolling like, oh, that is so funny.
That's
the
awesome.
Spirit of the 80s will always survive here.
Oh, okay. So it's Cry of the Banshee that is the one that
Cry of the Banshee.
Cry of the Banshee. Monomaniacal. It's about a witch Lord Edward Whitman cruelly persecutes the peasants in his corner of Elizabethan England, manufacturing charges and meting out punishment without regard to justice. I mean, he's after this coven of witches, and there's a lot of toplessness in the tavern kind of thing, which is look at you, you're like, all right, but
thumbs up.
There's quite a bit. If you see a chick come on the screen, for sure, some guy is going to rip her bodice off within 30 seconds. Again, I'm not opposed to that. It's just that
she'll be able to
you either got to go full.
That's
not really a selling point for you.
It's not even that. Like, I appreciate a good set as well as everybody else, but I mean, it's that there's no. It's got to go either foosball or actual horror to be good, and it's neither. And it kind of crosses the line a little bit into a little too rapey. Like it's
called Cry of the Banshee.
It is Cry of the Banshee.
I went to look for it, but I'm not going to dig. But I have two of those $5 collections from Walmart where you get 100 old. You know what I'm talking about?
I have a bunch of those. Yeah.
I think I might have it. I'm going to watch it. I want to watch it now because of you, Daisy. I'm going to.
I mean, it's worth it. But if you watch the first half hour, you've seen the whole movie. And, it's just not one of his better things. He's just not being Vincent Price. I mean. Dispute me if I welcome the argument.
Oh, no. Just I'm curious. Yeah.
And besides Hoopla this week, I actually went to the physical library.
Nice.
It's on YouTube. Lord. It's on YouTube for free.
Of course it is.
So all the 60s horror movies first and second run in the Savannah, Georgia. There's a child. Oh, wow.
Perfect.
Yep. Yeah, that was a comedy that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things I took out of the library, which is by, if you remember, we've been talking a lot about those Japanese comics that are just about like walking around the neighborhood or just about
Oh,
They're
yeah.
just about giving you a feeling sort of thing. And I think Comic Crack got one by this guy. And I was looking for that one in the library, and it wasn't there, but they had this one, which isn't quite this. It's not. It turns out it's also volume 1 too. So there's 2 volumes of it. But this was. What's also interesting about this is as it reads Western style from left to right, rather they didn't print it like it. And in the
rather backwards.
And in the back it says, the choice of Western reading sense rather than the Japanese for this book was made with the complete consent of the author. The graphic adaptation was done by Frederick Boyle in Tokyo during the spring of 2002 with the collaboration of the author. So I found that interesting that not only did it not read from back to front, but that they let you know that it wasn't them who decided to change it. It was the author. And this, rather than being a story about a walk around the neighborhood, it's about a guy who falls asleep on a train, wakes up in his old hometown, faints, and wakes up as his 14-year-old self.
Oh, that sounds like that sounds like an old radio drama that I listened to recently.
It's certainly not a new idea, and what's weird is it says adult content not appropriate for children. I guess the library put on it. There's nothing inappropriate in this. I mean, it might bore a child, but there's no swearing, no nudity, no.
It's one of two things. It's one of two things. People can't distinguish what manga is inappropriate, so they just label them all. And they're just being careful, because when I'm telling you, man, I have picked up some manga where 2 gay men were in a library. And it was right beside of some Adventure Time. I'm just saying, you know.
I picked up a couple.
If shows up, you know you're screwed.
I picked up a couple of years in the library some European graphic novels in the young adult section that were full of sex and nudity. I'm like, somebody didn't look at these.
Yeah, it's easier just to label them all. Just label them all. Yeah.
I enjoyed this, but I didn't think the translation was very good.
Mm.
It was kind of stilted. I bookmarked one the worst example. And like the whole thing isn't like this. This is the worst example. The guy's thinking about his friend, and he says, and although he was only in 8th grade, he was a third base regular on the baseball team.
That's a translation problem.
Yeah, that's a translation problem right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he should have said, although he was only in 3rd grade, he was the starting third baseman on the baseball team. It's like, I was just like, and there was a lot of that. And notice another weird thing about this that threw me off, that just kind of I didn't like, is the teeny tiny little tails on the balloons.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't immediately know. I had to look to see who was talking sometimes, because the tails are so small that. Let me see if I can find one. It was like sometimes you'd be like, "Who's talking?" And I'd have to look at I'd have to find the tail to know who was talking. And I also didn't like the way they did now the problem with the way they did the captions is I know how they did it. And instead of using a caption box, they took the font and made a big stroke around the font in white. Yeah, it just looks terrible, and I don't know why they did it that way. So though I enjoyed the comic, there were some stylistic things about it that really bothered me. The tails and the captions. Yep. But I don't know how much the captions would bother anyone else, except I knew exactly how they did them, and I know how lazy it is, and they could have found a better way.
I've had to fix that on a couple of the manga books that we've put out. It's the kind of thing where I fixed it without telling anybody I fixed it, because I just didn't want to get into it. But I was like, oh, for God's sake, I can't let this. I can't let it go like that. Nobody ever notices.
The Walking Man was the one Comic Crack got. This is by Who put this one out? Hello, where is the Newburgh Free Library? Fanfare, Potent Mon. Who is that? Yeah, the name of the thing is Fanfare /PONENTMON.
Common Correct is asking. Oh, you probably saw it. That's probably what you're doing now. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who put it out. PotentMon.com. I'd never heard of this publisher. Like, this was the only one I could find in the library search through a library search, so I got this one.
Well, my wife is building up quite the manga collection now, so I'm actually gonna ask her about some of these critiques. See what she's found. I mean, I have some here and there, but I'm hardcore old school '80s with this stuff. Vampire Hunter D, Appleseed, Lone Wolf and Cub. This newer stuff. Elfin Lied is a big one. I think that's from the 2000s. So
yeah, all this
and
stuff.
The other stuff.
Go ahead.
Was that?
No, go.
I said the other stuff I got from the library I haven't read yet. This is one Orbiter by Warren Ellis and Colleen Duran. Once again, since I was looking up Warren Ellis, I saw. And when did this? I've been meaning to buy this. Or read
I read that 15 years ago, and I'm not going to. I think that put me to sleep. That was coming out around the same time as 30 Days of Nights, if I remember correctly.
2003. So since 2003, I've been saying I should really pick that up.
I've got stuff I've done that with. I've got stuff I've had in a box saying I should hurry up and read that. I'm with you, Garrett. I know how this happens. Yeah.
And I just never find, like I said, I was looking for Warren Ellis Planetary Omnibus. I enjoy Ministry of Space. I think Chris Sprouse drew that one. Really, that's a good one. I enjoy that one.
Chris Weston.
Chris Weston, was it? Okay, Chris Weston drew that one.
Has anybody... Sorry to, I just saw Kevin just posted this. Has anybody, can you see that? It's there, Two Moons. Has anybody ever read that?
I passed on that one. I didn't read it. That was one I was thinking about getting, and I was just kind of like, I was on the fence about it, and ended up, I can't remember exactly what made me not buy it, but he
mentioned that it's horror, that it's a Civil War occult horror book.
Yeah. It's about they kept saying he was an American Indian, but he looked black. So I didn't know if he was supposed to be mixed race.
You're talking about a character?
What was that?
Are you talking about a character in the book?
Yeah, the lead character in the book.
Okay.
And he was like a Union soldier in the Civil War, and horror stuff happens. I can't remember what.
Gotcha.
Comic Crack likes it. He's reading it. It's really good. You know what I think? I think the art just didn't jump out at me. That's what I think. That's why I didn't, because that's what I read about and was kind of interested in. But I was picking up a few other things. What happens is sometimes these things come in waves. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if it happens to come out when I just picked up 3 new books that month, it's kind of like, I find reasons not to get it.
Right.
And that might have been one of those books. There's no real reason I didn't buy it.
Did you see that look on Paolo's face?
Yeah.
He's got me curious. Go ahead, Daisy. I'm sorry.
No. I didn't look. I had nothing.
And the next thing I got out of the library is a pure nostalgia pick. And I don't even like it. It's one of the Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely new X-Men volumes. I was actually looking for the omnibus of it, but I don't think they had it in the library. They had like one listing that had all of the trade paperbacks ISBN numbers. And I was like, I don't know how they listed this. So I just clicked on it, and they sent me number 4.
Okay. Does it have the Ethan Van Sciver infamous sex issue?
No, I think this is all Quitely on this one.
Okay. That run, in my opinion, is like if you just read that as the X-Men, it's fine. But unfortunately, some of the stories you have to read interviews by Morrison to get what he's doing. That's why I don't think it really holds up. I just feel like Morrison didn't have a good time at Marvel's. What it feels like to me,
I read maybe the first volume or two of this way back when it came out and thought not much of them.
Well,
I thought it was just a little too goofy for me.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. The two most popular characters out of Morrison's run wasn't Cyclops and Jean Grey, the White Queen, and they were having an affair on the, astral plane or whatever, the mind of all this stuff. It was a character named Beak who looked like a baby chicken that was about 5'10", and his ghetto girlfriend who had fly wings and would puke on everything. And then they had babies that were mixtures of bald eagle chicks and flies. And that sounds fantastic to be sitting here and talking about it and stuff, but this is the X-Men book. That's what everybody remember. And the Cuckoos, 3 girls that were from Village of the Damned. I'm just saying,
Yeah, people were pissed off that Zorn was not Zorn.
I forgot about that. Yeah, and then we find out there was a real Zorn.
Because marketing loved Zorn. So now we got to have a real Zorn.
Yeah.
But the story makes sense if Zorn is not Zorn.
Yeah, but there's a real Zorn. That's what got me. Magneto was such a good Zorn that he was exactly like the real Zorn. It was fantastic.
The thing is, I had been so used to Scott Lobdell being boring for years, and this was the first time in like a decade that the X-Men were interesting.
I just looked, and this came out in 2003 also.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure why I have nostalgia for this. It's weird how I now have nostalgia for books I didn't like.
You can't explain nostalgia. In my opinion, you're never going to know what kicks that. You know what I mean? Like I've tried to watch movies to see if I felt nostalgia. Nothing happened. And then I saw Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl video, like on 70s Vivo or 80s Vivo or something, like on a Pluto TV channel. And I'm like, I'm transported back. I'm 7 years old again. You never know what's going to do it for you.
I don't know what Nice House on the Lake is.
Yeah, neither do I.
There's a question here. Did Ethan also hate working on that book? Back before Comicsgate, or when he was building up to it, Ethan Van Sciver actually would talk about books that he worked on. He would do a whole video on them. And he said that Grant Morrison was not happy at all to have him working on his X-Men. He ended up hating working at Marvel, is what he said in his videos. He hated working at Marvel, and what they did is the editors took him into the office and showed them Grant Morrison's emails to him, to the editors, talking about he didn't want Ethan on the book. And he actually talked to Grant, like, what's the deal? And he's like, you weren't supposed to see that. So when he got out of his contract, he called Jeff Johns right up and claims he went right back to DC, like, I'm free, let's do it, John, or something. So, yeah, that's in one of Ethan. That was back when I watched EBS's channel when he talked about his comics.
Because for Morrison, Whiteley was a personal choice, but the man simply could not handle a monthly schedule. It was impossible. No, Quietly.
Quietly. Okay.
Yeah, that's the. I didn't notice a new DC Black Label. I've been kind of ignoring those DC Black Label books only because I don't like the square bound format. Yeah, that's the only reason. I guess they're relabeling Vertigo Black Label now.
Yeah, and I know what he's talking about, the magazine-sized comic book. I like
the magazine size, but I'm just not a huge fan of the square boundness of that. Just turns me off a lot of times.
I actually remember why I bought this now that I'm thinking about it. It goes back to, you remember how we talked about prestige format and how you said you hate how it crinkles the cover? I had to get this because I've after sitting there kind of looking at you kind of funny, I'm like, I haven't opened my books of magic for 20 years because I don't want to crinkle the cover. Yeah.
No, it doesn't bother me crinkling the cover. It bothers me that they don't lay flat.
Right.
But especially like European graphic albums they're bigger and they open a little flatter, but there's also not a lot of double page spreads. And like, especially American comics, there's double page spreads everywhere that get eaten up by the spine.
Let me see if I can show why. So there's a little room here where they do the binding, and that's what allows you to open the book. And in the USA, they don't do that with the prestige formats.
Yeah.
They do that with the large omnibuses, but they don't do it when they're small.
Hard covers, not the soft covers.
But it's the soft. Yeah, the soft covers don't open the same way. We used to have soft cover. We used to have soft cover versions of the albums, but now we don't.
But even like on some of the European graphic albums I have, being that they're a little bit wider, they open a little bit better. And like I said, there's not a lot of double page spreads. Yeah,
right.
That's how a lot of you can get hardcover books here that open like that too, but not all. Some of them, not all of them. But like the trade paperbacks don't, and especially like, and the thinner it is, like those prestige format ones, the more trouble it has opening. So it's kind of like that's the only reason I haven't. Well, besides the fact that I haven't been buying DC books in general, but like, what was that giant? There was a book about fighting giant monsters that came out recently from Image that was also prestige format. That some people
Kaiju
like.
Max. Wait a minute.
No, not Kaiju Max. It's
It's right on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's about a guy fighting with giant monster police. But that one I passed up on just because it was square bound. I'm like, I don't want to read a square bound comic. So sometimes that really does matter to me. When I'm sitting there deciding between comics, and a comic costs $8, I don't want it in a format that I don't like it in that much. So sometimes that affects, not always. Sometimes I like the comic rises above the format for me. But sometimes if I'm on the fence about it and I'm like, here's two $4 comics I can try, or here's one $8 comic that's square bound, maybe I'll get the two $4 comics. So it all depends. Like, I don't know if I'll ever actually read this or just flip through it. But that's one of the joys of library books. You can just I can just go on the web now and order it, and they'll send it from another library to my library.
It really amazes me because in the house that I talked about as a kid, where the pulp novels were around and everything, I don't know how many books we had that had the stamp on the top of the pages or inside the book that they were from libraries. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm really surprised. My whole point is I'm really surprised people take them back. I really am. You know.
Well, libraries also sell them, too, at the end of their useful life.
Well, I also think people think the library place from Seinfeld, they think it's real. So, you know.
And the last thing I got from the library is another one I probably won't read, but I want to look through. And that's X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piskor.
You're just trying to get everybody riled up again.
Hey, Scott's not here to get riled up. We're okay.
I had no idea.
But once again, I just like open to a random page because this is exactly the kind of continuity I don't like. In that because the kind of continuity I like is in 1988, so and so invented this in the. I like the actual history of the continuity, not the continuity that is pretended. Like, this starts out like in 1963, Apocalypse did this, and you're like, what?
No,
Apocalypse was around in 1963.
No, I got you.
Yeah, that's the fake more. That's the in-story continuity. I like the actual historical continuity.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying. They go back and they try to fill in gaps or what happened in between issues, or I'm with you. The Grand Design. I mean, I know people that love it and they talk about it, but I've never had any interest in reading it. And in real life, I don't know anybody that's read it that really did like it. If that makes sense, you know what I mean?
I have to say, I probably won't actually read it, but I'll flip through it and read some parts here and there that catch my eye. Well, that's what's good about library books. I don't have to keep it. I don't have to read it. I can just look at it for a while. Ultra Mega. That was the book I was thinking of. I can't remember what Scott got riled up about, but it had something to do with Ed Piscor. We started. I can't remember.
With Tom Scioli, and then somewhere on the line, Cartoonist Kayfabe channel came up. All I said was I don't watch them, not because they're not any good or anything like that, but because they're not doing anything that us OG comic book YouTubers didn't do before. I've seen it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we found out that people hate Ed Piscor. That's all Cartoonist Kayfabe. And I was like, oh God. I was like, let's not do this here. And it was over. It was over. You know, I'm not here to shit on anybody. I didn't know, you know. But yeah, I had no idea Ed Piscor was not like. So then you talked about Murder Room. That's what started it. That Murder Room comic book.
Yes, I bought the Murder Room. And then he says, "Did you watch this cartoonist?" Sometimes I do.
We're not on my channel. It's cool. No.
Sometimes I do watch their stuff, but I actually don't subscribe to them only because they put out so much stuff.
Do they?
And it's like it just kind of floods my feed, and I'm like, I get tired of seeing videos I'll never watch because they have so many of them. But like Bunch sometimes puts links to their stuff, and maybe I'll check out one of those if he puts a link.
Like I said, the last thing I ever watched was their Howard Chaykin interview from over a year ago. But I know they pick up issues of Wizard and go through them. We even did that. We've already done the Wizard thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know. So good for them.
But that Howard Chaykin interview was so good because they just let Howard talk.
Yeah, they were saying yes, sir, and no, sir, and let him talk. Yep.
Yeah, I love Hip Hop Family Tree. I just can't stand the printed version because it's unreadable. They yell. It's made to look like an old comic, and they made it look too much like an old comic for me. I find the type unreadable. Yeah, the Chaykin interview. It was Chaykin who was fantastic. He just did a good job talking. I have not seen the Beset one. I'll have to check that out.
Oh, well, you said Beset. I finally found it. I had to go through some old screenshots trying to find it. And from 2017, I have this has nothing to do with anything. You just triggered a memory. But Swamp Thing number 25 is not the first appearance of John Constantine. It is a Sting cameo that they hit in there. Right. And I had the Facebook post that Rick Vetch is saying, yeah, we were hiding Sting in there, like number 25. You know, and he said, and he posted a picture of issue 37, said, I had the glory of doing the first issue of, I had the honor of doing the first issue of first appearance of John Constantine. So I finally found it. And that's the one book that I really want to wave the flag and put in everybody's face, like, wake up.
Yeah, I occasionally take screenshots of like comic history moments too. I don't know. I'll have to find out where I put them. I put them somewhere.
Well, did you see that I found like issues 20 through 25 and 2 issues of 25. The one that's worth a lot of money because people think it's a John Constantine cameo. I found it for 30 cents a piece at a flea market last week. So I ended up getting 2 more issues of that. The first Alan Moore, the anatomy lesson, 30 cents a piece. I was like, wow. Yeah, I was very proud of myself.
You know, it's funny. It popped into my head before, but I forgot about it. When we were mentioning writers getting mad about crossovers interrupting their story. Mm-hmm. If you watch my weekly haul videos, I always have one old cover that I keep on top of my printer that I look at all week. And last week I had a Swamp Thing issue. I think it was Swamp Thing 30, the issue where Arcane has just killed. It's one of those moments one of those comic book moments that always lives on my head. It's one of those famous, one of my favorite ones, where Arcane has killed Abby. Mm-hmm. And the whole issue is just this emotional issue. That's the one where Swamp Thing turns around and says, "You should not have come here," to Arcane after he's killed Abby. When Swamp Thing is gone back, it was the first time we realized that this isn't the Swamp Thing we know anymore, because he tells us that.
Yeah.
But like 2 pages later, is a Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover page. All of a sudden, we get the Monitor on his ship.
He's in the book. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it was like it's like so out of place. There's this whole really incredible moment in Swamp Thing going on in this issue with Avi dying and her ex-husband trying to save her and the Swamp Thing trying to save her. And right in the middle is this obligatory crossover page. It's just like
page you can rip and throw out. Yeah. I forgot about that.
I have never read Alan Moore's 1963 from Image. I think I read 1 or 2 issues of it, and it didn't grab me because it was too much of an homage for me, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then I heard nothing but good things about it, but I never got back to it.
A lot of it was nostalgia, and it was the fact that Vetch and everybody that Moore had working on those books felt like they could really fit in there in that era. So that people have different reasons for liking them. They didn't blow me away, but it's one of those things I could tell they were well done. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. It's more the craft than the actual stories. Do I believe prices should have ended the? Well, here's my thing. I was totally on board with Crisis. I was 12. You guys mind if I answer? I don't want to.
You can go right ahead.
Yeah. So I was totally on board with Crisis going on, man. I mean, I was 12 years old. Nothing like this had been done. You know what I mean? I was excited. Where's this going? It was unpredictable. You had no idea how they're going to get out of this, and it had stakes. They'd already killed Supergirl, but you got that 1-2 punches when they killed the Flash is when to me it got serious. So I'm all for it. I mean, I love Earth 2. I got my All-Star Squadron. I got all the crossovers. It didn't confuse me and all that stuff. And then in issue 12, they had the original Robin hugging and holding the Huntress, and a damn wall falls on him and kills him. And that's when I was like, I don't think this was a good idea. It made it less interesting, in my opinion. I think a good writer. I was also reading Alan Moore and really starting to discover him, like in the Superman annual and some stuff he was doing. Yeah. He was showing you can do a good Superman story. So, at 12 years old, when they killed the original Robin and Huntress, that's when I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So I think it was needed. I think a lot of good stuff came out there, and it gave everybody I can start with Superman with John Byrne, George Perez and Lynn Wein did a great Wonder Woman. Some good stuff came out of it, but in the end, no, I don't think they should have done it. No, I'd hate to see some of the stuff that came out of it go away and never happen. But no, I don't think they should have done it. No.
Well, once again, it was subverted eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I was all for it, but when killing that original Robin got me. I was like, no.
In any case, the idea that the multiverse was confusing for readers, that was total bullshit. The real reason is that they needed a kick in the ass to get the sales up because they were getting decimated by Marvel at the time.
Yeah.
They only had 2 comics selling above the 100,000 line, and those were New Teen Titans and I think Warlord.
Yeah.
And they couldn't justify that with the Superman movies.
Did you say Warlord? Warlord was still selling with Dan Jurgens on it?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess it was. That's the number that they reported was they had 2 comics above the 100,000 threshold, where they were paying royalties. And when Marvel was discussing if they were going to pay royalties because everything that they had from their own line was above 100,000, including Dazzler.
Yeah.
Dazzler number 1 sold 250,000.
Yeah, but they had the Superman movies at the time, and they couldn't explain why the Superman movies weren't making people buy Superman comics. So they needed something to get people talking about it.
Now, I will tell you, man, I was on, I don't know, probably about a year ago, I was on a show with some of the young guys on C. Woodward and Comic Book Andy and some of those guys. And I did have a moment where I tried to slow things down because they wanted to do a show on Christ on the Infinite Earth, and they got the trade, and I knew this was going to be a bad idea. Those books aren't designed to sit down and read all at once. You had to read one and maybe read number one, spend a month reading it, maybe read it 2-3 times, and then number two. You can't sit down and read it all the way through. That's how comics used to be. That's why Crisis is so good. You really have to take your time with it, to really take apart what's up there, man. Sorry, man.
I've told young guys the same thing about Silver Age comics. I remember Masked Panther, one of the younger guys who was on YouTube. He likes the old comics. He likes the 60s stuff. But he's like, one time he was making a video saying, man, I did fantastic. It just makes me fall asleep. I start reading a few issues. And I'm like, no. You can't read a few issues of Fantastic Four, the very earliest issue. You read one issue a day.
Here's how you used. Okay, I want to throw this in, then I want to shut my mouth because here's how it used to be. You went and got your stack of comics for the month, right? Or for that week. Excuse me, that week. You get them off the spin rack, and then because you knew you were going, you would read. You would either save the best for last and then have them by the way you wanted to read them, or they had a cliffhanger where you're like, I got to read that motherfucker first. You're probably already reading it, walking down the street to your house. That's how it used to be. You used to keep 5 or 6 stories in your head at a time, month to month. You follow me?
Then you trade with your buddy.
They're losing something these days, not having that magic. I don't care if that dates me or makes me an old man, but yeah.
That was, and then you trade with your buddy too, your friend who was the Avengers fan, and you were the Fantastic Four fan, and you couldn't afford the Avengers, so he'd read yours, you'd read his.
I traded one time in the early 80s and got like that Justice League. I don't know. It was the villain story from the Justice League, like 192 or something with Ultra Humanite and stuff. After that, I didn't trade anymore because I found out whatever I traded Mike Kestner actually ended up being worth money. Later.
We wouldn't trade. We just borrow each other's issues.
Oh, that was me and my brother. We would do that. Yeah, my brother and I would do that.
Right. Because you couldn't afford every issue on the stand.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. That's such an integral part of childhood that I missed.
Yeah.
My brother, I would walk my brother over there. My brother was 4 years younger than me, and he would buy his books. I would buy my books. We'd go in my room. I'd lay in my bed. He'd be on the bean bag, and we would trade them back and forth. But just being 4 years younger of the youth of that time, he had his pulse on everything that was going to be worth money. We both had like the first appearance of Deadpool. He kept his. He had the first Cable. I totally missed it. And I'm the guy that was the comic book dude in the house. But he was the one that could he had the touch. You know what I mean? He had the touch. He still has them all. It kills me. And he doesn't even read comics. He got out like in 2000. He's like, yeah, I'm done. And he just put his boxes in a closet,
Oh.
By the way, I want to point out that also at the end of this book is there's a reprint of X-Men #1 recolored by Ed Piskor. Like, all right. Okay.
That was my exact reaction.
I just find that a weird thing. It's just kind of like that.
Tom Scioli has a channel now, Total Recall or something is what it's called. It's been showing up in my feed since people went off on Ed Piskor on our chat. I'm getting recommendations now. How funny. Well, guys, I want to bow out, man. Daisy, it was fantastic seeing you. Good to see you. Thank you for putting up with me, and thanks for having me on. And Paolo, I watched a little bit of y'all's show this morning that you and Scott did. You guys need to team up more. I'm dead serious. I mean, I smiled through the first 5 or 10 minutes of it, like really hard. It was awesome. So I'm gonna finish it up this weekend.
I was by the time we reached 15 minutes, I was looking at the time, and we were still kind of hesitant. But then by half an hour, we were talking about Walt Newton, and more people started showing up. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we were almost at 2 hours, and then we started talking about mashed potatoes.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Before we knew it. Mashed potatoes were a topping.
All right. Yeah, I'll catch y'all later, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good one. He's trying to leave. We still have a few more minutes here, so we'll hang out.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, I read a lot of comics this week, digitally and in reality. That was like I said, rereading Jupiter's Legacy, reading James Bond Omnibus. That was a lot. Both of them were stuff that read fast, though. So
Yeah,
I
that's
took out
like,
some comics.
let's see.
I
That's
took out some
why
comics to. Oh, almost. Yeah, how's that progressing?
That doesn't read as fast as Jupiter's Legacy. That's for
No?
sure.
does not. It's I mostly stayed up way too late a few nights in a row.
It's very absorbing, but it doesn't move quickly.
Yeah, yesterday I took out some comics to serve as props in case I needed to show something that I wanted to talk about, and I ended up rereading this today. It's the Justice Incorporated, where the Avenger, the Doc Savage, and the Shadow team up.
Right.
And that's how it's written by Michael Uslan, and he takes the time to explain why Doc Savage starts using his famous hairdo, and oops, it's over here. Yeah, and this is full of little jokes about Superman and Batman.
That's kind of cool.
I actually.
Because Margot says that Doc Savage, oh man, you're the man of steel. Well, I wouldn't say that.
I also finished rereading Clyde Fans again this week. I think I finished that last Sunday, maybe, and I actually wrote a review of it, which I think is going to be in my blog tomorrow. But I really enjoy Clyde Fans. That's a good book, one of my favorites. But it's definitely not for everybody. You've got to like some navel gazing about two fan salesmen and how they think of their lives in retrospect and hindsight. I love comics like that, but not everyone does.
I just love the
Clyde
term navel
Fans is the way to go. What was that?
I said I just love the term navel gazing.
Navel gazing. There you go.
It's very descriptive.
It's good stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also read digitally some of the Marvel crossover Heroes Reborn, which I occasionally like to do, just to see what Marvel's doing. Who's writing it?
Jason Aaron.
Yeah, Clyde Fans is excellent. It's one of my all-time favorites. Jason Aaron's writing it, and I think it's different artists drawing it. And it's one of those it's well done. It's a well-crafted comic. It's just kind of pointless.
It is pointless. It's well crafted, like the pieces fit together, but nobody's acting like they're supposed to. None of that thing makes any sense. Because it's very simple. If the Avengers don't exist, and that's the premise for this story, the Avengers don't exist, neither does the Squadron Supreme.
See, that doesn't even bother me because I don't expect it to make sense. In my mind, I'm not even trying to make it make sense because I know it's never gonna. So I'm reading it without caring about any of that continuity stuff because I just know it. But in reading it, it's like I said, it's well crafted. But it's a story you've read before, in terms of something has changed in the world. Something somewhere changed, which changed the whole present, and everybody in the present doesn't know it, except these 2 or 3 characters who know something's wrong and they have to change it back to the way it was. But the people who are, on top of the way it is now don't want them to change it. So it's like the same story we've read a zillion times before, but it's well crafted enough. But, you read it and immediately forget about it. Speaking of nasal game, I remember I have Bottomless Belly Button, I think.
What is
Where is
that? What in the world is bottomless belly button?
It's this book right here. Who does it? There was a time. When did this come out? Around 2010, and it's a Fantagraphics book. 2007. There was a time. It's kind of a slice of life book when these giant books that have like 2, 3. They're not really as big as you think because here's 6, 5, and 6 panels on it. This is a busy page. Sometimes for pages they have just a few panels, and it's about this sort of dysfunctional family. I think I reread this one fairly recently, and it's okay. It's solidly, it's solidly okay. It flips by pretty quickly, and I like it, but I don't think it's a B to me. It's a solid B. If you like slice of life sort of books, but if you don't, but they're really, here all of a sudden is a section where there's one panel on each page. So you can see how this section will fly by.
Right.
Dash Shaw, that's his name. You can see. So there was a time, like when this came out, books like this were winning comic book awards. Mm-hmm. Big, I forget what the other ones were, but big, thick books. For some reason they had to be big and thick, even if they were, padded out for us regular comic book readers. And it was good, but Blankets, that was the other one that won so many awards. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dash Shaw, 2008, right. I don't know if I've read a ton from him. Solid work from a young cartoonist. That's how did Adrian Tomine have new work out? What did he come out with recently? I think he's matured quite a bit. I haven't seen Dash Shaw's recent work, I don't think. I'm trying to think of what I got some Adrian Tomine book. I generally always like his, but I never know if the Adrian Tomine books are reprint collections or not. Because it takes him so long to come out with a comic book. He does a comic book called Optic Nerve, and it comes out once every 3 years. Then once every 12 years comes out a collection. And I get the collection, and I'm like, oh, is this new stuff or old stuff? And then he occasionally does stuff like, oh, there it is. He occasionally does stuff like this, which was a wedding favor he made for his bride and everybody at the wedding. It's the story of them it's just this little mini comic of them leading up to them getting married, which is pretty good stuff. Oh, this is the latest thing he did.
I mean, that's really cute.
Yeah, it is kind of adorable. But this is the latest thing he did, The Loneliness of the Long Distance Cartoonist. And it's designed, it's designed to look like a sketchbook. It's even got the elastic over here. And it's it's printed on gridded paper, like a gridded sketchbook. I wonder if he drew it in a gridded sketchbook. And it's about him being a cartoonist. And how it affects his life and the loneliness of being a cartoonist. So this one, I enjoyed this one. Yeah, this is the one. I forgot what it was. Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner? Not quite. Cartoonist. Yeah, this one, I enjoyed it. But he does really quiet slice of life stories. So you have to like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about navel gazing. Yep, that's what it is. And if I remember right, there was something, I haven't read this in a while. When did it come out? A year or two ago? Let me see. I remember being a little let down by the ending, only because I saw it coming. And I was like, geez, I don't even see a year on it. 1974, that's not the year. And the end has some gridded pages where you can draw your own stuff. I
That's also called We Don't Have Enough to fill up the book. So here are some blank pages.
Yep. Here's some blank pages. I can't remember how it ended, but I found the ending a little predictable. That's all I remember about it. I don't think I've ever seen that one. Chabout's Park bench work. Yeah, I'd like to see a park bench. Like I said, I like navel gazing. eBay telling me that Zoe Lister's bikini is still for sale. Since I got that jacket, the damsels in distress jacket, I get all sorts of eBay alerts from other Hollywood memorabilia, and Zoe Lister's bikini is one of them.
Who is Zoe Lister?
She's an actress. She was on the show Whitney, among other things.
Now I gotta look her up. You gonna buy the bikini? How much is the bikini?
I don't know. Let's see. Oh, I got a $5 coupon for it. Authentic screen worn. $112. So if you want her bikini from some random TV show or movie.
I do not.
Alone, Moby Dick, etc. I read Alone. I don't remember. I don't know Alone. Doomsday Clock sucks. Yeah, that's actually on this channel we've talked about Doomsday Clock, and we don't quite say it sucks. We just say it's well crafted but pointless. My LCS owner friend used to recommend me Adrian Tomine and Terry Moore so much. He wanted me to branch out from Marvel DC to real indie. Yeah, that's going out on a. I mean, I'm a big fan of Adrian Tomine and Terry Moore, but going from Marvel DC right to them, maybe Terry Moore, not Adrian Tomine. Adrian Tomine, like his stuff is so quiet and slice of life that if you're used to superhero stories. I don't know how you're going to embrace Adrian Tomine. I'm still not exactly.
You need to read some Vertigo first, and then move on.
Read some Vertigo first. Read
then move on to Concrete. Then you can read Adrian Tomine.
Right.
There you go. By the way, there's Zoe Lister in her green bikini. See, I think that was.
There she is.
I think that was.
You can buy that.
Sorry, I can't get it. I can't get
$112. That bikini's yours. We need to retcon Doomsday Clock. Not a big fan of clocks in general. All right. Well, we should wrap up now anyway because it's getting towards the end. So thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Woof. And we'll catch you next week.
There we go. The dog fights are starting.
Dog fights are starting.
Yep.
You'll miss the exciting.